Shalom, my name is Adam, and I welcome you to the parable of the vineyard. Every day, Yahuah is waking up a remnant, a group of people who are coming out of deceptions, realizing our walk is to consist of faith and obedience to his righteous commands. Each week, we read through and examine a portion of the Torah, allowing the Spirit of the Most High to guide, teach, and open our eyes and ears to the wondrous matters out of his law. Join us as we seek to be refined by his word, preparing ourselves for the return of our King of Kings, being faithful and obedient, walking in his way, truth, and life. Shabbat Shalom, brothers and sisters. Welcome back. We are in week 13, and we are in the book of Exodus, the Torah portion Shemot. Really exciting. Honestly, I look forward to this Torah portion every year now. Last year, we did a 3-hour Torah portion on this one. There's so much to cover. So really, I'm going to keep my words very, very few today. And man, there's so much to cover. You know, the biggest thing I think you might glean from today's Torah portion is when we take the book of Jasher, it fills in all the holes of many years that go by from the end of chapter 50 in the book of Genesis to chapter 1 in Exodus. Many years actually transpire, and you might, in that may not be too surprising, because most people ask themselves, how did they go from being, from Joseph ruling and all the children of Israel being like a blessing in the land and everybody loves them, to, okay, now you're like in slavery. You're like, the record stops, like how did that happen? And the great news is, in this Torah portion, when we read the book of Yashar, it fills in all the holes. Now, we've got a lot of reading, but there's probably, if you were with us last year, or if you've read the book of Yashar yourself, you've probably seen a lot of these things, but hey, like always, it's great to refresh. If you haven't, wow, you're really in for a treat. I was ecstatic when I read these things, because I think a lot of us are coming to a place where we want to know everything about the Torah, and all the holes sometimes, which I think were intentionally placed there by the Most High. He said it himself in the book of 2 Esdras, chapter 14, that certain books, will be kept back for the wise. Certain books will be read by the wise and the unwise, the worthy and unworthy, and certain books will be kept for the wise, for his righteous. So I do believe that this book is a big part of that. And also, we have a few things to glean from the Targums as well. Really interesting stuff. So this is Exodus 1:1 through 6:1. And again, the Torah portion is Shemot, which means names, because that's what it starts out with. So a lot of reading to do. Let's pray real quick, and we'll get started. Heavenly Father, Yahuah, we just come together in your Son's name, Yahusha HaMashiach, and we're gathering together as an assembly to publicly read your scriptures, and we pray that you bless it and you sanctify it. We pray that you open our eyes and ears so that we may hear your words and may understand them, and may be doers of your word and not just hearers only. We want to bring forth fruit that you desire from us, and we pray that you work on each and every one of us individually as we need, as things need to be pruned off us, that we may do what's right in your sight. We bless you and thank you on this Shabbat, and we're ecstatic to know that you and the angels, Yahusha, they're all celebrating it up in heaven as we're doing it now here on earth. We love you. In Yahusha's name, amen. All right, great Torah portion. I am excited. Let's get into this. Okay, so we're going to start with the Exodus 1:1, of course. We're going to be reading from the Sefer version. And let me just get everything set up real quick, and we should be ready to go. And yes, James, we will tell Tell everyone in your house we will be doing the Ten Commandments song after this is over. So, Exodus 1. We're going to read Exodus. I got all my notes here because there's so much to read, and I got some things to help guide me because this is a huge study. So, Exodus, we're going to read Exodus 1 through 7, and then we're going to read a little bit of Yashar. Now these are the names of the children of Yisrael, which came into Mitzrayim, which Egypt. Every man in his household came with Yaakov, Reuben, Shimon, Levi, Yehuda, Yissachar, Zebulun, Benjamin, Dan, Naphtali, Gad, Asher. And all the souls that came out of the loins of Yaakov were 70 souls, for Yosef was in Mitzrayim already. And Yosef died, and all his brethren, and all that generation. And the children of Yisrael were fruitful, and increased abundantly, and multiplied, and waxed exceeding mighty, and the land was filled with them. Right? So before we get into the oppression, let's read chapter 58. We'll kind of get an idea what's brewing here. And it came to pass in the 32nd year of the Israelites going down to Egypt, that is, in the 71st year of the life of Yosef. In that year died Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and Magron, his son, reigned in his stead. And Pharaoh commanded Yosef before his death to be a father to his son, Magron, and that Magron should be under the care of Yosef and under his counsel. And all Egypt consented to this thing, that Yosef should be king over them. For all the Egyptians loved Yosef as of heretofore. Only Magron, the son of Pharaoh, sat upon his father's throne, and he became king in those days in his father's stead. And Magron was 41 years old when he began to reign, and 40 years he reigned in Egypt. And all Egypt called his name Pharaoh, after the name of his father, as it was their custom to do in Egypt to every king that reigned over them. And it came to pass, when Pharaoh reigned in his father's stead, that he placed the laws of Egypt and all the affairs of government in the hand of Yosef, as his father had commanded him. And Yosef became king over Egypt, for he superintended over all Egypt. And all Egypt was under his care and under his counsel, for all Egypt inclined to Yosef after the death of Pharaoh, and they loved him exceedingly to reign over them. But there were some people amongst them who did not like him. This is where it started brewing, saying, "No stranger shall reign over us." Still, the whole government of Egypt devolved in those days under Yosef, after the death of Pharaoh, he being the regulator, doing as he liked throughout the land without anyone interfering. And all Egypt was under the care of Yosef. And Yosef made war with all his surrounding enemies, and he subdued them. Also all the land and all the Philistines unto the borders of Canaan did Yosef subdue, and they were all under his power, and they gave a yearly tax unto Yosef. And Pharaoh king of Egypt sat upon his throne in his father's stead, but he was under the control and counsel of Yosef, as he was at first under the control of his father. Neither did he reign but in the land of Egypt only, under the counsel of Yosef. But Yosef reigned over the whole country at that time, from Egypt unto the great river Perath. And Yosef was successful in all his ways, and Yahuah was with him. And Yahuah gave Yosef additional wisdom and honor and glory, and love toward him in the hearts of the Egyptians and throughout the land. And Yosef reigned over the whole country 40 years. And all the countries of the Philistines, and Canaan, and Zidon, and the other side of Jordan, brought presents unto Yosef all his days. And the whole country was in the hand of Yosef, and they brought unto him a yearly tribute as it was regulated. For Yosef had fought against all his surrounding enemies, and subdued them. And the whole country was in the hand of Yosef, and Yosef sat securely upon his throne. And also all his brethren, the sons of Yaakov, dwelt securely in the land all the days of Yosef. And they were fruitful, and multiplied exceedingly in the land. And they served Yahuah all their days, as their father Yaakov had commanded them. And it came to pass at the end of many days and years, when the children of Esau were dwelling quietly in their land with Bela their king, that the children of Esau were fruitful and multiplied in the land, and they resolved to go and fight with the sons of Yaakov and all Egypt, and to deliver their brother Zepho, the son of Eliphaz, and his men, for they were yet in those days slaves to Joseph. And the children of Esau sent unto all the children of the east, and they made peace with them. And all the children of the east came unto them to go with the children of Esau to Egypt to battle. And there came also unto them the people of Angeas, king of Dinhaba, and they also sent unto the children of Ishmael, and they also came unto them. And all this people assembled and came unto Seir to assist the children of Esau in their battle. This camp was very large and heavy with people, numerous as the sand of the sea, about 800,000 men, infantry and cavalry. And all these troops went down to Egypt to fight with the sons of Yaakov, and they encamped by Ramesses. And Joseph went forth with his brethren, with the mighty men of Egypt, about 600 men, and they fought with them in the land of Ramesses. And the sons of Yaakov at that time again fought with the children of Esau, in the 50th year of the sons of Yaakov going down to Egypt. That is the 30th year of the reign of Bilah over the children of Esau in Seir. And Yahuah gave all the mighty men of Esau and the children of the east into the hand of Joseph and his brethren. And the people of the children of Esau and the children of the east were smitten before Joseph. And all the people of Esau and the children of the east that were slain, there fell before the sons of men about 200,000 men. Let me say that again. 600, right? 600 of Joseph and his brethren and his men versus killing 200,000 men. So the day is coming up with what's going on. We got nothing to fear. And their king Bela, the son of Beor, fell with them in battle. And when the children of Esau saw that their king had fallen in battle and was dead, their hands became weak in the combat. And Joseph and his brethren in all Egypt were still smiting the people of the house of Esau. And all Esau's people were afraid of the sons of Yaakov and fled from before them. And Joseph and his brethren in all Egypt pursued them a day's journey, and they slew yet from them about 300 men, continuing to smite them in the road. And they afterward turned back from them. And Joseph and all his brethren returned to Egypt. Not one man was missing from them, but of the Egyptians there fell 12 men. And when Joseph returned to Egypt, he ordered Zepho and his men to be additionally bound, and they bound them in irons, and they increased their grief. And all the people of the children of Esau and the children of the east returned in shame, each unto his city, for all the mighty men that were with them had fallen in battle. And when the children of Esau saw that their king had died in battle, they hastened and took a man from the people of the children of the east. His name was Jobab, the son of Zerach. Yes, this is Job. This is Job, from the book of Job. From the land of Botzra, and they caused him to reign over them instead of Bela their king. And Jobab sat upon the throne of Bela as king in his stead. And Jobab reigned in Edom over all the children of Esau 10 years. And the children of Esau went no more to fight with the sons of Yaakov from that day forward. For the sons of Esau knew the valor of the sons of Yaakov, and they were greatly afraid of them. But from that day forward the children of Esau hated the sons of Yaakov, and the hatred and enmity were very strong between them all the days unto this day. And it came to pass after this, at the end of 10 years, Jobab the son of Zerach from Botzra died. And the children of Esau took a man whose name was Husham from the land of Timan, and they made him king over them instead of Jobab. And Husham reigned in Edom over all the children of Esau for 20 years. And Joseph, king of Egypt, and his brethren, and all the children of his Yisrael dwelt securely in Egypt in those days, together with all the children of Joseph and his brethren, having no hindrance or evil accident and the land of Egypt was at that time at rest from war in the days of Joseph and his brethren. All right, now let's go back to Exodus. We're going to go Exodus 1:8 through 22. Now there arose up a new king over Mitzrayim, which knew not Joseph. And he said unto his people, Behold, the people of the children of Yisrael are more and mightier than we. Come on, let us deal wisely with them, lest they multiply. And it come to pass that when there falls out any war, they join also unto our enemies and fight against us, and so get them up out of the land. So now that we just read, some of the wars that Yisrael fought for Egypt, they saw what these people could do. I mean, literally, we just saw 600 of Joseph's men, and there are some Egyptians too. Let's not discount that, but seriously, I mean, the 600 of them up against and killing 200,000 plus. The Egyptians would be, afraid of them, right? So, therefore they did set over them taskmasters to afflict them with their burdens, and they built for Pharaoh treasure cities, Pithom and Ramesses. But the more they afflicted them, the more they multiplied and grew, and they were grieved because of the children of Yisrael. And the Mitzrayim made the children of Yisrael to serve with rigor, and they made their lives bitter with hard bondage, in mortar and in brick, and in all manner of service in the field. And all their service wherein they made them to serve was with rigor. And the king of Mitzrayim spoke to the Ivri, the Hebrew midwives, of which the name of one is Shifra and the name of the other Pua, which in the Targums we find out that this is Jochebed and Miriam. So this is the mother of Moses and the sister of Moses. And he said, when you do the office of a midwife to the Ivrit women and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. But the midwives feared Elohim and did not as the king of Mitzrayim commanded them, but saved the men children alive. The king of Mitzrayim called for the midwives and said unto them, Why have ye done this thing, and have saved the men children alive? And the midwives said unto Pharaoh, Because the Ivrit women are not as the Mitzrite women, for they are lively and are delivered ere the midwives come into them. Therefore Elohim dealt well with the midwives, and the people multiplied and waxed very mighty. And it came to pass, because the midwives feared Elohim, that he made them houses. And we'll learn in the Targums what that actually means. It explains that in full detail. It's really, he didn't like build them a house, like, here, you get a house. You'll actually find out what that means. And Pharaoh charged all his people, saying, Every son that is born ye shall cast into the river, and every daughter ye shall save alive. All right, and so now let's go back. We got a lot of ground to cover. So now it's like, again, so how do you get the children of Israel having the strength of 600 men, killing 200,000 enemies, and then all of a sudden they're like, okay, you can put us in bonds, and you can whip us and abuse us and mistreat us. So a lot has happened in between. Let's find out. So we're going to go to Jasher. We're going to skip down to... this is kind of a repeat, the first part of chapter 59. We're going to go to verse 25 through 28. And it came to pass after this that Joseph died in that year, the 71st year of the Israelites going down to Egypt. And Joseph was 110 years old when he died in the land of Egypt. And all his brethren and all his servants rose up, and they embalmed Joseph, as was their custom. And his brethren and all Egypt mourned over him for 70 days. And they put Joseph in a coffin filled with spices and all sorts of perfume, and they buried him by the side of the river that is Sihor, and his sons and all his brethren, and the whole of his father's household made a 7 days mourning for him. And it came to pass, after the death of Joseph, all of the Egyptians began in those days to rule over the children of Yisrael. And Pharaoh, king of Egypt, who reigned in his father's stead, took all the laws of Egypt and conducted the whole government of Egypt under his counsel, and he reigned securely over his people. All right, we're going to skip chapter 60 because this is just the history of Zepho, the son of Eliphaz, and Angeas, king of Africa. This is all awesome reading, but I really want to stay on topic here because there's so much to read. All right, so chapter 61, verses 1 through 11. And it came to pass at that time, Pharaoh, king of Egypt, commanded all his people to make for him a strong palace in Egypt, because many more wars were going on, kind of what we just skipped. And he also commanded the sons of Yaakov to assist the Egyptians in the building. And the Egyptians made a beautiful and elegant palace for a royal habitation, and he dwelt therein, and he renewed his government, and he reigned securely. And Zebulun, the son of Yaakov, died in that year. That is the 72nd year of the going down of the Israelites to Egypt. And Zebulun died 114 years old, and he was put into a coffin and given into the hands of his children. And in the 75th year died his brother Shimon. He was 120 years old at his death, and he was also put into a coffin and given into the hands of his children. And Zepho, the son of Eliphaz, the son of Esau, captain to the host of Angeas, king of Dinhaba, was still daily enticing Angeas to prepare for battle to fight with the sons of Yaakov in Egypt. And Angeas was unwilling to do this thing, for his servants had related to him all the might of the sons of Yaakov, what they had done unto them in the battle with the children of Esau. And Zepho was in those days daily enticing Angeas to fight with the sons of Yaakov in those days. And after some time Angeas hearkened to the words of Zepho, and consented to him to fight with the sons of Yaakov in Egypt. And Angeas got all his people in order, a people numerous as the sand which is upon the seashore, and he formed his resolution to go to Egypt to battle. I have to imagine, as many times as we see this term, sand upon the seashore, I have to imagine, not very many people live near the beach, but I guess they all visited the beach. I guess they did take trips to the beach because this was a very common saying. And if people didn't, visit it, it's not like they had the internet, they didn't really have pictures. So most people probably saw it for themselves, just thinking out loud. And he formed a resolution to go to Egypt to battle. And amongst the servants of Angeas was a youth, which I'm totally cool with. I mean, the beach is probably one of my favorites, top 3 of Yahweh's creation. Top 2. And amongst the servants of Angeas was a youth 15 years old. Bilam, the son of Beor, was his name, and the youth was very wise and understood the art of witchcraft. Right, so here we get introduced to Bilam at 15. And Angeas said unto Bilam, Conjure for us, I pray, with the witchcraft, that we may know who will prevail in this battle to which we are now proceeding. And Bilam ordered that they should bring him wax, and he made thereof the likeness of chariots and horsemen, representing the army of Angeas and the army of Egypt, and he put them in the cunningly prepared waters that he had for that purpose. And he took in his hand the boughs of myrtle trees, and he exercised his cunning, and he joined them over the water, and there appeared unto him in the water the resembling images of the host of Angeas, falling before the resembling images of the Egyptians and the sons of Yaakov. And Bilam told this thing unto Angeas, and Angeas despaired and did not arm himself to go down to Egypt to battle, and he remained in his city. Now again, Yahuah doesn't tell us not to do witchcraft because it's fake and doesn't do anything. It does do something, but it's exercising the power of demons, and it's obviously something he doesn't want us to participate in. Same thing with, when people used to bow down to idols, they used to do some favors for them, as we learned from Jethro a couple of Torah portions ago. So we're going to skip the rest. The rest is about Janiah and his queen. So it's a great read, but it's kind of irrelevant to our Torah portion right now. All right, we're going to read Yashar 62, 1 through 5, and then 23 through 24. So chapter 62. In that year, being the 79th year of the Israelites going down to Egypt, died Reuben, the son of Yaakov, in the land of Egypt. Reuben was 125 years old when he died, and they put him into a coffin, and he was given into the hands of his children. And in the 80th year died his brother Dan. He was 120 years at his death, and he was also put into a coffin and given into the hands of his children. And in that year died Husham, king of Edom, and after him reigned Hadad, the son of Bedad, for 35 years. And in the 81st year died Issachar, the son of Yaakov, in Egypt. And Issachar was 122 years old at his death, and he was put into a coffin in Egypt and given into the hands of his children. And in the 82nd year died Asher, his brother. He was 123 years old at his death, and he was placed in a coffin in Egypt and given into the hands of his children. And in the 83rd year died Gad. He was 125 years old at his death, and he was put into a coffin in Egypt and given into the hands of his children. All right, so we'll skip down to 23 through 24. And it came to pass at that time that Yehuda, the son of Yaakov, died in the 86th year of Yaakov's going down into Egypt. And Yehuda was 129 years old at his death, and they embalmed him and put him into a coffin, and he was given into the hands of his children. And in the 89th year died Naphtali. He was 132 years old, and he was put into a coffin and given into the hands of his children. So really, I mean, just, the age of when they die, really, it can't really have a direct reference on righteousness. I mean, I can't say it can. I can't say that. But I mean, we look at Joseph. I mean, he died at 110. It could be that he died, the youngest, because he lived the hardest life. Like, it was hard. I mean, think about it. He was in prison for 12, 13 years. That's hard. That's hard on the mind. That's hard on the body, I have to imagine. So there's some other factors, to take into consideration there. I mean, we do see Judah at 129, and I think Levi will die at 137. And there you've got your king and priesthood. They live a little bit longer than everybody else, except for Naphtali. He's kind of the wrench and everything, so I'm not sure. It's hard to tell, but it is interesting. So we're going to skip the rest here. Just more War of Africa stuff. All right, we're going to read chapter 63, 1 through 9. And again, all what we're doing now, if you just joined us, what we're doing is we're filling in the holes from when the children of Israel were prospering in the land, everybody loved them, to, hey, now you're our slaves. We're filling in those holes of how we get there, of how they got there. Yashar, chapter 63. And in the 93rd year died Levi, the son of Yaakov, in Egypt. And Levi was 137 years old when he died. And they put him into a coffin, and he was given into the hands of his children. And here we go. This is where it starts. This is like the last brother. After the last brother dies is like when the protection kind of starts to fade away. Not that Yah is not still there, but it's like, you'll see what I'm saying. And it came to pass after the death of Levi, when all Egypt saw that the sons of Yaakov, the brethren of Joseph, were dead, all the Egyptians began to afflict the children of Yaakov and to embitter their lives from that day unto the day of their going forth from Egypt. And they took from their hands all the vineyards and fields which Joseph had given unto them, and all the elegant houses in which the people of Yashrael lived, and all the fat of Egypt the Egyptians took from all the sons of Yaakov those days. And this is nothing new, because even like in the book of Judges, we see right when Joshua dies, right? Like when that leadership kind of passes away, and the next generation's there to kind of take over, it's just like, I mean, already there, it's like right afterwards, okay, they're like, all right, we're gonna go serve Baal. You're like, what? How does that even happen? All right, verse 3. And the hand of all Egypt became more grievous in those days against the children of Yashrael, and the Egyptians injured the Israelites until the children of Yashrael were wearied of their lives on account of the Egyptians. It came to pass in those days, in the 102nd year of Yashrael going down into Egypt, the Pharaoh king of Egypt died, and Melol his son reigned in his stead, and all the mighty men of Egypt and all that generation which knew Joseph and his brethren died in those days. And another generation rose up in their stead, which had not known the sons of Yaakov, and all the good which they had done to them, and all their might in Egypt. Therefore all Egypt began from that day forth to embitter the lives of the sons of Yaakov, and to afflict them with all manner of hard labor, because they had not known their ancestors, who had delivered them in the days of the famine. And this was also from Yahuah. Remember, right? He chastens us for our good, for the children of Yashrael, to benefit them in their latter days, in order that all the children of Yashrael might know Yahuah their Elohim. We may not like it when it comes. Going back 2 weeks ago, to probably like, okay, not quite, because it's the Pacific time. We didn't quite get together. But 2 weeks ago today, got together with 10, 12, 15, I don't know how many there was. We got together on the beach of Huntington Beach in SoCal, and we got together, and I was saying this specifically that we read Psalm 119 together, and I always appreciate the part where it's like, it was good that I was afflicted, that I might learn your statutes, and unless your Torah had been my delight, I should have perished in my affliction. There's something to be said about the growth that we experience in affliction. And when I was saying that, little did I know that I was about a day or two away from a major time of affliction for myself, and a time of growth. So praise Yah for that. And, as I was telling them, we shouldn't always be so quick to be ready to get out of that time of affliction, because we learn so much in that time. And that's also, again, where we learn so much. Hang on one second. Hey, Bubby. Hey, hang on one second. Excuse me, brothers and sisters. Give me just a moment. Give me just a moment. So, any case, sorry about that. So, any case, when we're in it, and all we want to do is get out of it, but sometimes we just need to pause and be quiet and be like, okay, I want to learn. What do I need to learn? What is the lesson here? What is the growth that needs to happen here? So anyways, I don't want to get too many rabbit holes today, because there's so much to read, but basically that's what this is saying here. And so this affliction was from Yahuah for the children of Yashrael, to benefit them in their latter days, in order that all the children of Yashrael might know Yahuah their Elohim. And in order to know the signs and mighty wonders which Yahuah would do in Egypt on account of his people Yashrael, in order that the children of Yashrael might fear Yahuah Elohim of their ancestors and walk in all his ways, and they and their seed after them all their days. Because let's be honest, if they weren't afflicted and there wasn't this bitterness, it wouldn't have really been a rescue from Egypt. There'd kind of been like, why are you rescuing us? We're fine. We're good, So that's how it had to be. Melol was 20 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 94 years 94 years, and all Egypt called his name Pharaoh after the name of his father, and as it was their custom to do to every king who reigned over them in Egypt. So we'll stop there, and we're going to go to 64, and we're going to start at verse 10. And Zepho sent messengers to Hadad, the son of Bedad, king of Edom, and to all his brethren, the children of Esau, saying, Did you not say that you would not fight against the king of Africa, for he is a member of your covenant? Behold, I fought with him and smote him and all his people. Now, therefore, I have resolved to fight against Egypt and the children of Yaakov who are there, and I will be revenged of them for what Joseph, his brethren and ancestors, did to us in the land of Canaan when they went up to bury their father in Hebron. Now, then, if you are willing to come to me to assist me in fighting against them in Egypt, then shall we avenge the cause of our brethren. And the children of Esau hearkened to the words of Zepho, and the children of Esau gathered themselves together, a very great battle, and they went to assist Zepho and the children of Chittim in battle. And Zepho sent all the children of the east, and to all the children of Ishmael with words like unto these. And they gathered themselves and came to the assistance of Zepho and the children of Chittim in the war upon Egypt. And all these kings, the king of Edom, and the children of the east, and all the children of Ishmael, and Zepho the king of Chittim, went forth and arrayed all their hosts in Hebron. And the camp was very heavy, extending in length a distance of 3 days' journey, a people numerous, there it is again, as the sand upon the seashore, which cannot be counted. And all these kings and their hosts went down and came against all Egypt in battle, and encamped together in the valley of Pathros. And all Egypt heard their report, and they also gathered themselves together, and all the people of the land of Egypt, and all the cities belonging to Egypt, about 300,000 men. And the men of Egypt sent also to the children of Yashrael, who were in those days in the land of Goshen, to come to them in order to go and fight with these kings. And the men of Yashrael assembled, and were about 150 men. 150 men. And they went into battle to assist the Egyptians. And the men of Yashrael and of Egypt went forth, about 300,000 men and 150 men. And they went toward these kings to battle, and they placed themselves from without the land of Goshen opposite Pathros. And the Egyptians believed not in Yashrael to go with them in their camps together for battle. For all the Egyptians said, Perhaps the children of Yashrael will deliver us into the hand of the children of Esau and Ishmael, for they are their brethren. And all the Egyptians said unto the children of Yashrael, Remain you here together in your stand, and we will go and fight against the children of Esau and Ishmael. And if these kings should prevail over us, then come you altogether upon them and assist us. And the children of Yashrael did so. And Zepho the son of Eliphaz, the son of Esau, king of Chittim, and Hadad the son of Bedad, king of Edom, and all their camps, and all the children of the east, and the children of Ishmael, a people numerous as sand, encamped together in the valley of Pathros, opposite Tahaphanes. And Balaam, the son of Beor, the Syrian, was there in the camp of Zepho, for he came with the children of Chittim to the battle. And Balaam was a man highly honored in the eyes of Zepho and his men. And Zepho said unto Balaam, Try by divination for us, that we may know who will prevail in the battle, we or the Egyptians. And Balaam rose up and tried the art of divination, and he was skillful in the knowledge of it, but he was confused, and the work was destroyed in his hand. And he tried it again, but it did not succeed. And Balaam despaired of it, and left it, and did not complete it. For this was from Yahuah, in order to cause Zepho and his people to fall into the hand of the children of Yashrael, who had trusted in Yahuah, the Elohim of their ancestors, in their war. And Zepho and Hadad put their forces in battle array, and all the Egyptians went alone against them, about 300,000 men. Not one man of Yashrael was with them. And all the Egyptians fought with these kings opposite Pathros and Tahaphanes, and the battle was severe against the Egyptians, and the kings were stronger than the Egyptians in that battle. About 180 men of Egypt fell on that day, and about 30 men of the forces of the kings, and all the men of Egypt fled from before the kings. So the children of Esau and Ishmael pursued the Egyptians, continuing to smite them unto the place where was the camp of the children of Yashrael. And all the Egyptians cried unto the children of Yashrael, saying, Hasten to us, and assist us, and save us from the hand of Esau, Ishmael, and the children of Shittim. And the 150 men of the children of Yashrael ran from their station to the camps of these kings, and the children of Yashrael cried unto Yahuah their Elohim to deliver them. And Yahuah hearkened to Yashrael, and Yahuah gave all the men of the kings into their hand. And the children of Yashrael fought against these kings, and the children of Yashrael smote about 4,000 of the king's men. And Yahuah threw a great consternation in the camp of the kings, so that the fear of the children of Yashrael fell upon them. And all the hosts of the kings fled from before the children of Yashrael. And the children of Yashrael pursued them, continuing to smite them unto the borders of the land of Cush. And the children of Yashrael slew of them in the road yet 2,000 men. And of the children of Yashrael not one fell. And when the Egyptians saw that the children of Yashrael had fought with such few men with the kings, and that the battle was so very severe against them, all the Egyptians were greatly afraid of their lives on account of the strong battle. And all Egypt fled, every man hiding himself from the arrayed forces. And they hid themselves in the road, and they left the Yashraelites to fight. And the children of Yashrael inflicted a terrible blow upon the king's men, and they returned from them after they had driven them to the border of the land of Cush. And all Yashrael knew the thing which the men of Egypt had done to them, that they had fled from them in battle, and they had left them to fight alone. So the children of Yashrael also acted with cunning, and as the children of Yashrael returned from battle, they found some of the Egyptians in the road, and smote them there. And whilst they slew them, they said unto them these words, Wherefore did ye go from us, and leave us, being a few people, to fight against these kings who had such a great people to smite us, that ye might thereby deliver your own souls? And some of which the Yashraelites met on the road, they, the children of Yashrael, spoke to each other, saying, Smite, smite, for he is an Ishmaelite, or an Edomite, or from the children of Shittim. And they stood over him and slew him, and they knew that he was an Egyptian. And the children of Yashrael did these things cunningly against the Egyptians, because they had deserted them in battle and had fled from them. And the children of Yashrael slew of the men of Egypt in the road this manner about 200 men. And all the men of Egypt saw the evil which the children of Yashrael had done to them. So all Egypt feared greatly the children of Yashrael, for they had seen their great power, and that not one man of them had fallen. So all the children of Yashrael returned with joy on their road to Goshen, and the rest of Egypt returned, each man to his palace. Okay, now we're going to read. Okay, so we're going to read chapters 65 and 66, and we'll get back to Exodus. And it came to pass after these things that all the counselors of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and all the elders of Egypt assembled and came before the king and bowed down to the ground, and they sat before him. And the counselors and elders of Egypt spoke unto the king, saying, Behold, the people of the children of Yashrael is greater and mightier than we are, and thou knowest all the evil which they did unto us in the road when we returned from battle. And thou hast also seen their strong power, for this power is unto them from their fathers. For but a few men stood up against a people numerous as the sand, and smote them at the edge of the sword, and of themselves not one has fallen, so that if they had been numerous, they would have utterly destroyed them. Now therefore give us counsel what to do with them, until we gradually destroy them from amongst us, lest they become too numerous for us in the land. For if the children of Yashrael should increase in the land, they will become an obstacle to us. And if any war should happen to take place, they, with their great strength, will join our enemy against us and fight against us and destroy us from the land and go away from it. So the king answered the elders of Egypt and said unto them, This is the plan advised against Yashrael, which we will not depart. And let's just pause here for a second. And even though in this case the Israelites were fewer in number, they were greater in strength. Think about it now. The people that run the world, the so-called elite, they're the ones few in number, and they are afraid of us. So they know that if everybody kind of woke up in one day, their power would be over, just like that. But that's not Yahuwah's will, and it's not going to happen. So that's why you have all these brainwashing programs. That's why you have the corrupt medical system, the corrupt food system, and the list goes on. I'm just saying that. But at the end of the day, they know, they're not dumb. They know that because now his people are as the sand of the sea, like literally. And that if we all rose up, it'd be over for them in a day, 2 days, it'd be over. But again, that's not Yah's will, so it's not going to happen, not until he says so, not until it's his timing. Behold, so this is their plan. Behold, in the land of Pithom and Ramses, cities unfortified against battle, it behooves you and us to build them and to fortify them. Now, therefore, go you also and act cunningly, right? So they're acting with cunning, with wisdom and deceit, and they're being stealthy about it. Just same thing with the secret societies and all that that's going on today. Act cunningly toward them and proclaim a voice in Egypt and in Goshen at the command of the king, saying, all ye men of Egypt, Goshen, Pathros, and all their inhabitants, the king has commanded us to build Pithom and Ramesses, and to fortify for them battle. Who amongst you of all Egypt, of all the children of Yashrael, and of all the inhabitants of the cities, are willing to build with us? Shall each have his wages given to him daily, at the king's order. So go ye first, and do cunningly, and gather yourselves, and come to Pithom and Ramesses to build. And whilst you are building, cause a proclamation of this kind to be made throughout Egypt every day at the command of the king. And when some of the children of this is not the announcement yet. This is still like their plan. And when some of the children of Yashrael shall come to build with you, you shall give them their wages daily for a few days, not like literally days, but like a few months or years, as you'll see. So this is their long-term plan and how to put them in slavery. So this is the key part right here. And after they shall have built with you for their daily hire, drag yourselves away from them daily one by one in secret, and then you shall rise up and become their taskmasters and officers, and ye shall leave them afterward to build without wages, and should they refuse, then force them with all your might to build. So basically their plan is, it's going to be, they're positioning it as like, hey, let's all pitch in together. Let's do this together. We got to build these cities and defend them, because you see these battles that are going on. And listen, these cities are unfortified. We need to fortify them. Let's do this together. Let's build these cities. And what their plan is, they're going to pay them at first. And little by little, they're like, the Egyptians, like one at a time, will, withdraw from the work. And then all of a sudden, they're like, become like overseers. And the children of Israel will be like, oh. And if you do this, it will be well with us to strengthen our land against the children of Yashrael. For on account of the fatigue of the building and the work, the children of Yashrael will decrease, because you will deprive them from their wives day by day. And all the elders of Egypt heard the counsel of the king, and the counsel seemed good in their eyes, and in the eyes of the servants of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all Egypt. And they did according to the word of the king. And all the servants went away from the king, and they caused a proclamation to be made in all Egypt, in Tahaphanes, and in Goshen, and in all the cities which surround Egypt, saying, now here's the proclamation. You have seen what the children of Esau and Ishmael did to us, who came to war against us and wished to destroy us. Now therefore the king commanded us to fortify the land, to build the cities Pithom and Ramesses, and to fortify them for battle, if they should again come against us. Whosoever of you from all Egypt and from all the children of Yashrael will come to build with us, he shall have his daily wages given by the king, as his command is unto us. So here's the start of jobs, right? Before this, they didn't have jobs. They tended their flocks, and they had their gardens, and they had their fields, their vineyards, and they didn't have jobs. So this jobs thing was the start of slavery. I wonder what's going on today with jobs. And when Egypt and all the children of Yashrael heard all that the servants of Pharaoh had spoken, there came from the Egyptians and the children of Yashrael to build with the servants of Pharaoh, Pithom and Ramesses, but none of the children of Levi came with their brethren to build. And all the servants of Pharaoh and all his princes came at first with deceit to build with all Yashrael as daily hired laborers, and they gave to Yashrael their daily hire at the beginning. And the servants of Pharaoh built with all Yashrael, and were employed in that work with Yashrael for a month. And at the end of a month, all the servants of Pharaoh began to withdraw secretly from the people of Yashrael daily. And Yashrael went on with the work at that time, but they then received their daily hire, because some of the men of Egypt were yet carrying on the work with Yashrael at that time. Therefore the Egyptians gave Yashrael their hire in those days, in order that they, the Egyptians, their fellow workmen, might also take the pay for their labor. And at the end of a year and 4 months, all the Egyptians had withdrawn from the children of Yashrael, so that the children of Yashrael were left alone, engaged in the work. After all the Egyptians had withdrawn from the children of Yashrael, they returned and became oppressors and officers over them, and some of them stood over the children of Yashrael as taskmasters, to receive from them all that they gave them for the pay of their labor. So they did this step by step, piece by piece. Right, same thing how where we are at this point today in the world. And all the Egyptians did this manner to the children of Yisrael day by day in order to afflict their work. And all the children of Yisrael were alone engaged in the labor, and the Egyptians refrained from giving any pay to the children of Yisrael from that time forward. And when some of the men of Yisrael refused to work on account of the wages not being given to them, then the exactors and the servants of Pharaoh oppressed them and smote them with heavy blows and made them return by force to labor with their brethren. Thus did all the Egyptians unto the children of Yisrael all their days. So there must be something spiritual that happened here, because we have to be honest with each other. When you have 150, or when you have 600 men of Yisrael killing 200,000 enemies, and 150 killing several thousand, one of two of them could have probably killed all of them. So there must have been something spiritual in nature about taking pay and working for them and becoming their servants. But again, doing the work and receiving pay, they became their servants. And so that must have something spiritually must have happened to them that did take away their will, essentially, to fight back, or just to be, it's something that's a really interesting study that we could dive in further another time. But we have to admit something happened there to them that kind of subdued them. And all the children of Yisrael were greatly afraid of the Egyptians in this matter. And all the children of Yisrael returned and worked alone without pay. And the children of Yisrael built Pithom and Ramesses. And all the children of Yisrael did the work, some making bricks and some building. And the children of Yisrael built and fortified all the land of Egypt and its walls. And the children of Yisrael were engaged in work for many years, until the time came when Yahuah remembered them and brought them out of Egypt. Now listen carefully. Now a lot of you have already seen this study, but just to refresh you, this is an amazing passage, and I think we need to be like the Levites here, because we already saw the Levites didn't go to the work. But the children of Levi were not employed in the work with their brethren of Yisrael from the beginning unto the day of their going forth from Egypt. Because all the children of Levi knew that the Egyptians had spoken all these words with deceit to the Israelites. Therefore, the children of Levi refrained from approaching to the work with their brethren, and the Egyptians did not direct their attention to make the children of Levi work afterward, since they had not been with their brethren at the beginning. Therefore, the Egyptians left them alone. So as this world continues to dive into chaos, I think we need to be like the Levites and be like, whoa, they're dealing with us, with deceit. Let's go ahead and slowly pull out of their society, because I don't want to be caught in their snare. And the hands of all the men of Egypt were directed with continued severity against the children of Yisrael in that work. And the Egyptians made the children of Yisrael work with rigor. And the Egyptians embittered the lives of the children of Yisrael with hard work in mortar and bricks, and also in all manner of work in the field. And the children of Yisrael called Melol, the king of Egypt, Meror, which king of Egypt, because in his days the Egyptians had embittered the lives with all manner of work. And all the work wherein the Egyptians made the children of Yisrael labor, they exacted with rigor, in order to afflict the children of Yisrael. But the more they afflicted them, the more they increased and grew, and the Egyptians were grieved because of the children of Yisrael. All right, chapter 66. Yes. Okay, so yeah, okay. Okay, so here you got more talks about war coming. And when the Egyptians heard, this is Yashar 66, and when the Egyptians heard this matter, they increased the labor upon the children of Yisrael, lest the Israelites should do unto them as they did unto them in the war of the children of Esau in the days of Hadad. So the Egyptians said unto the children of Yisrael, Hasten and do your work, and finish your task, and strengthen the land, lest the children of Esau your brethren should come to fight against us. For on your account they will come against us. And the children of Yisrael did the work of the men of Egypt day by day, and the Egyptians afflicted the children of Yisrael in order to lessen them in the land. But as the Egyptians increased the labor upon the children of Yisrael, so did the children of Yisrael increase and multiply, and all Egypt was filled with the children of Yisrael. And in the 125th year of Yisrael going down into Egypt, all the Egyptians saw that their counsel did not succeed against Yisrael, but that they increased and grew in the land of Egypt, and the land of Goshen were filled with the children of Yisrael. So all the elders of Egypt and then its wise men came before the king and bowed down to him and sat before him. And all the elders of Egypt and the wise men thereof said unto the king, May the king live forever. Thou didst counsel us the counsel against the children of Yisrael, and we did unto them according to the word of the king. But in proportion to the increase of the labor, so do they increase and grow in the land, and behold, the whole country is filled with them. Now therefore, our Lord and King, the eyes of all Egypt are upon thee to give them advice with thy wisdom, by which they may prevail over Yisrael, to destroy them or to diminish them from the land. And the king answered them, saying, Give you counsel in this matter, that we may know what to do unto them. And an officer, one of the king's counselors, whose name was Job, from Mesopotamia, in the land of Uz, answered the king, saying, Yes, this is Job, answered the king, saying, If it please the king, let him hear the counsel of his servant. And the king said unto him, Speak. And Job spoke before the king, the princes, and before all the elders of Egypt, saying, Behold, the counsel of the king which he advised formerly respecting the labor of the children of Yisrael is very good, and you must not remove from them that labor forever. But this is the advice counseled by which that you may lessen them, if it seems good to the king to afflict them. Behold, we have feared war for a long time, and we said, When Yisrael becomes fruitful in the land, they will drive us from the land if a war should take place. If it please the king, let a royal decree go forth, and let it be written in the laws of Egypt, which shall not be revoked, that every male child born to the Israelites, his blood shall be spilled on the ground. And by your doing this, when all the male children of Yisrael shall have died, the evil of their wars will cease. Let the king do so, and send for all the Hebrew midwives, and order them in this matter to execute it. So the thing pleased the king and the princes, and the king did according to the word of Job. So some people speculate that this is why all that befell Job, I guess the whole story makes a little more sense. I guess the story goes is after Egypt, he left and went back to his land and, became a righteous man. But then the big test came, right? Which we all know. It's one of the most, famous tests of all time. And the king sent for the Hebrew midwives to be called, of which the name was Shephrah, and the name of the other Puah. And the midwives came before the king and stood in his presence. And the king said unto them, When you do the office of a midwife to the Hebrew women, and see them upon the stools, if it be a son, then ye shall kill him. But if it be a daughter, then she shall live. But if you will not do this thing, then I will burn you up and all your houses with fire. But the midwives feared Elohim, and did not hearken to the king of Egypt, nor to his words. And when the Hebrew women brought forth to the midwives son or daughter, then did the midwife do all that was necessary to the child, and let it live. And thus did the midwives all the days. And this thing was told to the king, and he sent and called for the midwives, and said to them, Why have you done this thing, and have saved the children alive? And the midwives answered and spoke together before the king, saying, Let not the king think that the Hebrew women are as the Egyptian women, for all the children of Yisrael are hale, healthy, and before the midwives come to them, they are delivered. And as for us, thy handmaids, and for many days no Hebrew woman has brought forth upon us, for all the Hebrew women are their own midwives, because they are hale. And Pharaoh heard their words, and believed them in this matter, and the midwives went away from the king, and Elohim dealt well with them, and the people multiplied and waxed exceedingly. So now we're going to go back to Exodus, and we'll keep going. Now we're at the birth of Moshe. Chapter 2, Exodus. And there went a man of the house of Levi, and took to be his woman a daughter of Levi. And the woman conceived and bore a son. And when she saw him that he was a goodly child, she hid him 3 months. Now, for my brothers and sisters out there that say that the moons are not for months, so she hid him 3 months. Let's take a look at this word months, and this is the word yerach, which is the word for moon, right? month or moon. It's yeah. You have Yerach and Yareach. Yareach is the moon. Yerach is moon, month, right? It's the same thing, so it's interchangeable. So when people say that new moon should be translated as new month, and therefore the moons aren't used for the months, I do believe that to be incorrect. Love you regardless. I'm not one of those calendar Nazis, but I just wanted to point this out since we're running across it here, that it's basically does say that she hid him 3 months or 3 moons, which is the same thing as 3 months. And when she could not longer hide him, she took for him an ark of bulrushes and daubed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child therein, and she laid it in the reeds by the river's brink. And his sister stood afar off to wit what would be done to him. And the daughter of Pharaoh came down to wash herself at the river, and her maidens walked along by the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her maid to fetch it. And when she had opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the babe wept. And she had compassion on him, and said, "This is one of the Ivrim children." Then said his sister to Pharaoh's daughter, "Shall I go and call to you a nurse of the Ivrit women, that she may nurse the child for you?" And Pharaoh's daughter said to her, "Go." And the maid went and called the child's mother. And Pharaoh's daughter said unto her, "Take this child away and nurse it for me, and I will give you your wages." And the woman took the child and nursed it. And the child grew, and she brought him unto Pharaoh's daughter, and he became her son. And she called his name Moshe. And she said, "Because I drew him out of the water." Okay, so now we're going to go back to, let's see. Okay, yeah, 67. And on this point about I'm sorry, just real quick. And on this point about the moon, I got a second witness here. Sirach, book Ecclesiasticus. He made the moon also to serve in its season, to mark the times and to be an everlasting sign. From the moon comes the sign of the feast days, a light that wanes when it has reached the full. The month is named for the moon. That's what I was telling you. Yerach, Yareach. Yeah. So increasing marvelous in her phases, an instrument of the hosts on high, shining forth in the firmament of heaven. Enough about that. Okay, we're going to read all of 67 of Yashar. There was a man in the land of Egypt of the seed of Levi, whose name was Amram, the son of Kohath, the son of Levi, the son of Yashrael. And this man went and took a wife, namely Jochebed, the daughter of Levi, his father's sister. And she was 126 years old, and he came unto her. And the woman conceived and bare a daughter, and she called her name Miriam, because in those days the Egyptians had embittered the lives of the children of Yashrael. And she conceived again and bare a son, and she called his name Aharon, for in the days of her conception Pharaoh began to spill the blood of the male children of Yashrael. In those days died Zepho, the son of Eleph. And by the way, this is still going on this day right now. You've got the abortions, you've got all kinds of, now they're also taking the blood of people. If you think all the blood of that blood banks, if you think all that blood that goes to blood banks goes to transfusions, I think we might have missed something in our research. But these people literally drink the stuff to stay alive and to have power. In those days died Zepho, the son of Eliphaz, the son of Esau, king of Chittim, and Janeas reigned in his stead. And the time that Zepho reigned over the children of Chittim was 50 years, and he died and was buried in the city of Nabna in the land of Chittim. And Janeas, one of the mighty men of the children of Chittim, reigned after him, and he reigned 50 years. And it was after the death of the king of Chittim that Balaam, the son of Beor, fled from the land of Chittim, and he went and came to Egypt to Pharaoh, king of Egypt. And Pharaoh received him with great honor, for he had heard of his wisdom, and he gave him presents and made for him a counselor and aggrandized him, so made him great, right? And Balaam dwelt in Egypt in honor with all the nobles of the king, and the nobles exalted him because they all coveted to learn his wisdom. And in the 130th year of Yashrael going down into Egypt, Pharaoh dreamed that he was sitting upon his kingly throne, and lifted up his eyes and saw an old man standing before him. And there were scales in the hands of the old man, as such scales as are used by merchants. And the old man took the scales and hung them before Pharaoh. And the old man took all the elders of Egypt and all its nobles and great men, and he tied them together and put them in one scale. And he took a milk kid and put it into the other scale, and the kid preponderated over all of it. And Pharaoh was astonished at this dreadful vision, why the kid should preponderate over all. And Pharaoh awoke, and behold, it was a dream. And Pharaoh rose up early in the morning and called all his servants and related to them the dream, and the men were greatly afraid. And the king said to all his wise men, Interpret, I pray you, the dream which I dreamed, that I may know it. And Balaam the son of Beor answered the king and said unto him, This means nothing else but a great evil that will spring up against Egypt in the latter days. For a son will be born to Yisrael, who will destroy all Egypt and all its inhabitants, and bring forth the Yisraelites from Egypt with a mighty hand. Now therefore, O king, take counsel upon this matter, that you may destroy the hope of the children of Yisrael and their expectation before this evil arise against Egypt. And the king said unto Balaam, What shall I do unto Yisrael? Surely after a certain manner did we at first counsel against them, and could not prevail over them. Now therefore give you also advice against them, by which we may prevail over them. And Balaam answered the king, saying, Send now and call thy 2 counselors, and we will see what their advice is upon this matter, and afterward thy servant will speak. And the king sent and called his 2 counselors, Reuel the Midianite, yes, this is the father-in-law of, eventual father-in-law of Moses, and Job the Uzite. And they came and sat before the king, and the king said to them, Behold, you have both heard the dream which I have dreamed, and the interpretation thereof. Now therefore give counsel, and know and see what is to be done to the children of Yisrael, whereby we may prevail over them, before their evil shall spring up against us. And Reuel the Midianite answered the king and said, May the king live, may the king live forever. If it seem good to the king, let him desist from the Hebrews, and leave them, and let him not stretch forth his hand against them. For these are they whom Yahuah chose in days of old, and took as the lot of his inheritance from amongst all the nations of the earth, and the kings of the earth. And who is there that stretched his hand against them with impunity, of whom their Elohim was not avenged? Surely thou knowest that when Avraham went down to Egypt, Pharaoh, the former king of Egypt, saw Sarah his wife, and took her for a wife, because Avraham said, She is my sister, for he was afraid lest the men of Egypt should slay him on account of his wife. And when the king of Egypt had taken Sarah, then Elohim smote him and his household with heavy plagues, until he restored unto Avraham his wife Sarah, and then he was healed. And Abimelech the Gerarite, king of the Philistines, Elohim punished on account of Sarah, wife of Avraham, in stopping up every womb from man to beast. And when their Elohim came to Abimelech in the dream of night, and terrified him, in order that he might restore to Avraham Sarah, whom he had taken. And afterward all the people of Gerar were punished on account of Sarah. And Avraham prayed to his Elohim for them, and he was entreated of him, and he healed them. And Abimelech feared all this evil that came upon him and his people, and he returned to Avraham his wife Sarah, and gave him with her many gifts. He did so also to Yitzchak when he had driven him from Gerar. And Elohim had done wonderful things to him, that all the watercourses of Gerar were dried up, and their productive trees did not bring forth, until Abimelech of Gerar, and Ahuzath, one of his friends, and Pichol, the captain of his hosts, went to him, and they bent and bowed down before him to the ground. And they requested of him to supplicate for them, and he prayed to Yahuah for them, and Yahuah was entreated of him, and he healed them. Yaakov also, the plain man, was delivered through his integrity from the hand of his brother Esau, and the hand of Laban the Syrian, his mother's brother, who had sought his life, likewise from the hand of all the kings of Canaan, who had come together against him, and his children to destroy them. And Yahuah delivered them out of their hands, that they turned upon them and smote them, for who had ever stretched forth his hand against them with impunity? Surely Pharaoh the former, thy father's father, raised Joseph the son of Yaakov above all the princes of the land of Egypt. And when he saw his wisdom, for through his wisdom he rescued all the inhabitants of the land from the famine. After which he ordered Yaakov and all his children to come down to Egypt, in order that through their virtue the land of Egypt and the land of Goshen might be delivered from the famine. Now therefore, if it seem good in thine eyes, cease from destroying the children of Yasharel. But if it be not thy will that they shall dwell in Egypt, send them forth from here, that they may go to the land of Canaan, the land where their ancestors journeyed. So can you see why Yahuwah had mercy on Reuel, or Jethro, if you will? He had two names, Reuel and Jethro. He acted like a prophet here, and he acted as trying to deliver Israel at this point. And when Pharaoh heard the words of Jethro, right? See, his name is also Jethro. He was very angry with him, so that he rose with shame from the king's presence and went to Midian, his land, and took Joseph's stick with him. Oh, this plants the seed of the most excellent story. I can't remember if we get to this today or not. I think we do. Oh man, this is so cool. We might even have to do 2 parts of this Torah portion. This is so long. And the king said to Job the Uzite, What sayest thou, Job? And what is thy advice respecting the Hebrews? So Job said to the king, Behold, all the inhabitants of the land are in thy power. Let the king do as it seems good in his eyes. Right? Because he sees like, you're obviously not going to take good counsel. So yeah, just do what you want. And the king said unto Balaam, What dost thou say, Balaam? Speak thy word, and we may hear it. And Balaam said to the king, Of all that the king has counseled against the Hebrews, they will be delivered, and the king will not be able to prevail over them with any counsel. For if thou thinkest to lessen them by the flaming fire, thou canst not prevail over them. For surely their Elohim delivered Abraham their father from Ur of the Chaldeans. Remember, we talked about this many Torah portions now ago, where Nimrod threw Abraham in the fire and stood inside of it for 3 days. And if thou thinkest to destroy them with a sword, surely Yitzchak their father was delivered from it, and a ram was placed in his stead. Remember the binding of Isaac? And if with hard and rigorous labor thou thinkest to lessen them, wilt thou not thou wilt not prevail even in this, for their father Yaakov served Laban in all manner of hard work and prospered. Now therefore, O king, hear my words, for this is the counsel which is counseled against them, by which thou wilt prevail over them, and from that which thou shouldst not depart. If it please the king, let him order all their servants, which shall be born from this day forward, to be thrown into the water, for by this canst thou wipe away their name, for none of them, nor of their fathers, were tried in this manner, so tried by water. And the king heard the words of Balaam, and the thing pleased the king and the princes. And the king did according to the word of Balaam. And the king ordered a proclamation to be issued, and a law to be made throughout the land of Egypt, saying, Every male child born to the Hebrews from this day forward shall be thrown into the water. And Pharaoh called unto all his servants, saying, Go now, and seek throughout the land of Goshen, where the children of Yasharel are, and see that every son born to the Hebrews shall be cast into the river, but every daughter you shall let live. Right? Just like the days of Herod, and when our Messiah Yahusha was born. So we know that Moshe is, or that Yahusha is the prophet like unto Moshe. And this is just one of the many synchronicities. And when the children of Yasharel heard this thing which Pharaoh had commanded, to cast their male children into the river, some of the people separated from their wives, and others adhered to them. And from that day forward, when the time of delivery arrived to those women of Yasharel who had remained with their husbands, they went to the field to bring forth. Now listen, this is really interesting. They went to the field to bring forth there, and they brought forth in the field and left their children upon the field and returned home. At first you're like, what? Now this gets a little weird, but I really think this weird is the wrong word. Let me not use that word anymore. This is a little different, but I believe it's true. And we have a verse in the Torah to confirm it. I'll show you. And Yahuwah, who had sworn to their ancestors to multiply them, sent one of his ministering angels, which are in heaven, to wash each child in water, to anoint and swathe it, and to put into its hands 2 smooth stones. Now, this is actually a passage we read about in Ezekiel when he talks about, I washed you, I washed the blood off of you. It continues to talk about Egypt. I think, is it 16? Let me just find it real quick so you can reference it later. I think it's Ezekiel 16. Yeah, here we go. Here we go. As for the nativity in the day that thou was born, thy navel was not cut, neither was thou washed in water to supple thee. Thou was not salted at all, nor swaddled. None I pitied thee to do any of these unto thee, to have compassion upon thee. But thou was cast out in the open field to the loathing of thy person in the day that thou was born. And when I passed by thee, and I saw thee polluted in thine own blood, I said unto thee when thou was in thy blood, live. Yea, and I said unto thee when thou was in thy blood, live. And I caused thee to multiply as the blood of the field, and thou hast increased and waxen great, and thou art come to excellent ornaments. And anyways, it keeps going. But that's, you can see right here, right? Cast out into the open field. And you can see right here. Yeah, they were brought forth into the field and left their children upon the field and returned home. And Yahuwah, who had sworn to their ancestors to multiply them, sent one of his ministering angels which are in heaven to wash each child in water, to anoint and swathe it, and to put into its hands 2 smooth stones, from one of which it suckled milk, and from the other honey. Now this will make a lot more sense. Oops. It'll make a lot more sense, this passage here. 2 of them. Deuteronomy 32:13. He made them ride on the high places of the earth, that he might eat the riches of the fields, and he made them to suck honey out of the rock. We don't find this in the Torah anywhere. We don't find this in the wilderness. We don't find this when they're living in the land. But the only place we find this is in the book of Jasher, when you see right here, they took the stones, and one of it they drank milk, and the other they drank honey. They sucked honey from the rock. Psalm 81:16, and with honey out of the rock should I have satisfied thee. There's your confirmation from Jasher that this story is true. Which sucked from milk and the other honey, and he caused its hair to grow to its knees, by which it might cover itself, to comfort it and to cleave to it through its compassion for it. And when Elohim had compassion over them, he had desired to multiply them upon the face of the land. He ordered his earth to receive them, to be preserved therein till the time of their growing up, after which the earth opened its mouth and vomited them forth, and they sprouted forth from the city like the earth. Oh man, this is so cool. I know some of you are like, what? But seriously, I really believe this story. They sprouted forth from the earth like the herb of the earth and the grass of the forest, and they returned each to his family and to his father's house, and they remained with them. And the babes of the children of Yasharel were upon the earth like the herb of the field, through Elohim's grace to them. And when all the Egyptians saw this thing, they went forth each to his field with his yoke of oxen and his plowshare, and they plowed it up as one plows the earth at seed time. And when they plowed, they were unable to hurt the infants of the children of Yasharel. So the people increased and waxed exceedingly. And Pharaoh ordered his officers daily to go to Goshen to seek for the babes of the children of Yasharel. And when they had sought and found one, they took it from its mother's bosom by force and threw it into the river. But the female child they left with its mother, and thus did the Egyptians do to the Yashreelites all the days. All right. Chapter 68, we're going to read all of this. And it was at that time the spirit of Elohim was upon Miriam, the daughter of Amram, the sister of Aharon, and she went forth and prophesied. In the Torah it says she's a prophet, yet we don't really see any of her prophecies. And she went forth and prophesied about the house, saying, Behold, a son will be born unto us from my father and mother this time, and he will save Yasharel from the hands of Egypt. And when Amram heard the words of his daughter, he went and took his wife back to the house, after he had driven her away at the time when Pharaoh ordered every male child of the house of Yaakov to be thrown into the water. So Amram took Jochebed his wife 3 years after he had driven her away, and he came to her, and she conceived. At the end of 7 months from her conception, she brought forth a son, and the whole house was filled with great light, as of the light of the sun and the moon at the time of their shining. And this reminds me of the birth of Enoch, where it says here, the birth of Noah. So, and she became and after some days, my son Methuselah took a wife for his son Lamech, and she became pregnant by him and bore a son. And his body was white as snow and red as the blooming of a rose, and the hair of his head and his long locks were white as wool, and his eyes beautiful. And when he opened his eyes, he lighted up the whole house like the sun, and the whole house was very bright. And thereupon he arose in the hands of the midwife and opened his mouth and conversed with Yahuah of righteousness. Right? Hallelujah. That would be such a sight. So the whole house was filled with great light as the light of the sun and the moon at the time of their shining. And when the woman saw that the child, that it was good and pleasing to the sight, she hid it for 3 moons, in an inner room. In those days the Egyptians conspired to destroy all the Hebrews there. And the Egyptian women went to Goshen, where the children of Yashrael were, and they carried their young ones upon their shoulders, their babes who could not yet speak. And in those days, when the women of the children of Yashrael brought forth, each woman had hidden her son from before the Egyptians, that the Egyptians might not know of their bringing forth, and might not destroy them from the land. And the Egyptian women came to Goshen, and their children who could not speak were upon their shoulders. And when an Egyptian woman came to the house of a Hebrew woman, her babe began to cry. And when it cried, the child that was in the inner room answered it. So the Egyptian women went and told it at the house of Pharaoh. And Pharaoh sent his officers to take the children and slay them. Thus did the Egyptians to the Hebrew women all the days. And it was at that time, about 3 months from Jochebed's concealment of her son, that the thing was known in Pharaoh's house. And the woman hastened to take away her son from before the officers came. And she took him an ark of bulrushes, and daubed it with slime and with pitch, and put the child therein, and she laid it in the flags by the river's brink. I think this is all the same. Yeah. The only thing here different is we learned Pharaoh's daughter's name is Bathia. This is all the same. The only thing we learn here is at the end of 2 years, when the child grew up, she brought him to the daughter of Pharaoh, and he was a son unto her, and she called his name Moshe, for she said, because I drew him out of the water. Now here's all his other names. And Amram, his father, called his name Chabar, for he said it was for him that he associated with his wife, whom he had turned away. And Jochebed, his mother, called his name Yekuthiel, because she said, I have hoped for him to the Almighty, and Elohim restored him unto me. And Miriam, his sister, called his name Yered, for she descended after him to the river to know what would be his end, what his end would be. And Aharon, his brother, called his name Abi Zanuch, saying, my father left my mother and returned to her on his account. And Kohath, the father of Amram, called his name Abigdor, because on his account did Elohim repair the breach of the house of Yaakov, that they could no longer throw their male children into the water. And their nurse called him Abisocho, saying, in his tabernacle was he hidden for 3 months on account of the children of Ham. And all Yashrael called his name Shemaiah, the son of Nathaniel, for they said, for his days Elohim has heard their cries and rescued them from their oppressors. And Moshe was in Pharaoh's house, and was unto Bathia, Pharaoh's daughter, as a son, and Moshe grew up amongst them, the king's children. And 69 is really short. We're going to read all that. This is the 69 book of Yashar. And the king of Edom died in those days in the 18th year of his reign, and he was buried in his temple, which he had built for himself as his royal residence in the land of Edom. And the children of Esau sent to Pithor, which is upon the river, and they fetched from there a young man of beautiful eyes and comely aspect, whose name was Saul, and they made him king over them in the place of Samalah. And Saul reigned over all the children of Esau in the land of Edom 40 years. And interesting that Saul apparently, was tall, handsome, and he reigned for 40 years as well. And when Pharaoh, king of Egypt, saw that the counsel which Balaam had advised respecting the children of Israel did not succeed, but that they still were fruitful, multiplied, and increased throughout the land of Egypt, then Pharaoh commanded in those days that a proclamation should be issued throughout Egypt to the sons of Yashrael, saying, no man shall diminish anything of his labor. And the man who shall be found deficient in his labor which he performs daily, whether in mortar or in bricks, then his youngest son shall be put in their place. So put in the place of the bricks, so they'll be part of the building and die inside the building. And the labor of Egypt strengthened upon the children of Yashrael in those days. And behold, if one brick was deficient in any man's daily labor, the Egyptians took his youngest boy by force from his mother, and put him into the building in the place of the brick which his father had left wanting. And the men of Egypt did so to all the children of Yashrael day by day, all the days for a long period, but the tribe of Levi did not at that time work with the Israelites, their brethren, from the beginning, for the children of Levi knew the cunning of the Egyptians, which they exercised at first towards the Israelites. All right, we're going to read one more chapter of Yashar, and we're going to get back to Exodus. And in the 3rd year from the birth of Moshe, Pharaoh was sitting at the banquet when Alapharinith, the queen, was sitting at his right hand, and Bathia at his left, and the lad Moshe was lying upon her bosom. And Balaam, the son of Beor, with his 2 sons, Jannes and Jambres, and all the princes of the kingdom were sitting at the table of the king's presence. And the lad stretched, this is Moshe, so the lad stretched forth his hand upon the king's head, and took the crown from the king's head, and placed it upon his own head. And when the king and the princes saw the work by which the boy had done, the king and the princes were terrified. And one man to his neighbor expressed astonishment. So everybody's like, oh, like, because you just don't do that, right? And the king said unto the princes who were before him at the table, what speak you, and what say you, O ye princes, in this matter? And what is to be done to the judgment against the boy on account of this act? And Balaam, the son of Beor, the magician, answered before the king and said to the princes, and he said, remember now, O my lord and king, the dream which thou didst dream many days since, and that which thy servant interpreted unto you. Now therefore, this is a child from the Hebrew children, in whom is the spirit of Elohim. Let not my lord the king imagine that this youngster did this thing without knowledge, for he is a Hebrew boy, and wisdom and understanding are with him, although he is yet a child. And with wisdom has he done this, and chosen unto himself the kingdom of Egypt. For this is the manner of all the Hebrews, to deceive kings and their nobles, to do all these things cunningly, in order to make the kings of the earth and their men tremble. Surely thou knowest that Abraham their father acted thus, who deceived the army of Nimrod king of Babel, and Abimelech king of Gerar, and that he possessed himself of the land of the children of Heth, and all the kingdoms of Canaan. And that he descended into Egypt, and said of his Sarah, his wife, that she is my sister, in order to mislead Egypt and her king. Actually, we just read all this, right? We just read all this. It's all the same. We know the temptations. We saw all this about all the different deliverances that Yah had given his brethren. We just have so much more to read, so I'm just trying to make this another 3 or 4 hour Torah portion. And his sons sold their brother Joseph, who went down into Egypt and became a slave, and was placed in the prison house for 12 years, until the former Pharaoh dreamed dreams and withdrew him from the prison house, and magnified him above all the princes in Egypt on account of his interpreting his dreams. And when Elohim caused a famine throughout the land, he sent for and brought his father and all his brothers and the whole of his father's household, and supported them without price or reward, and bought the Egyptians for slaves. Now therefore, my lord and king, behold, this child has risen up in their stead in Egypt, to do according to their deeds, and to trifle with every king, prince, and judge. If it please the king, let us now spill his blood upon the ground, lest he grow up and take away the government from thy hand, and the hope of Egypt perish after he shall have reigned. And Balaam said to the king, let us moreover call for all the judges of Egypt, and the wise men thereof, and let us know if the judgment of death is due to this boy, as thou didst say, and then we will slay him. And Pharaoh sent and called for all the wise men of Egypt, and they came before the king, and an angel of Yahuah came amongst them, and he was like one of the wise men of Egypt. And the king said to the wise men, surely you have heard what this Hebrew boy who is in the house has done, and thus has Balaam judged in the matter. Now judge you also, and see what is due to the boy for the act he has committed. And the angel, who seemed like one of the wise men of Pharaoh, answered and said as follows, before all the wise men of Egypt, and before the king and the princes, if it please the king, let the king send for men, who shall bring before him an onyx stone, and a coal of fire, and place them before the child. And if the child shall stretch forth his hand and take the onyx stone, then shall we know that with wisdom has the youth done all that he has done, and we must slay him. But if he stretch forth his hand upon the coal, then we shall know that it was not with knowledge that he did this thing, and he shall live. And the thing seemed good in the eyes of the king and the princes, so the king did according to the word of the angel of Yahuah. And the king ordered the onyx stone and the coal be brought in place before Moshe. Remember, Moses is a little baby at this point. And they placed the boy before them, And the lad endeavored to stretch forth his hand to the onyx stone, but the angel of Yahuwah took his hand and placed it upon the coal, and the coal became extinguished in his hand, and he lifted up and put it into his mouth, and burned a part of his lip and part of his tongue, and he became heavy in mouth and tongue. And a lot of people, I think, and a lot of people agree with me, this is why later on we find out that Moshe is slow of speech, slow of tongue, because he burnt his mouth bad because he put a hot coal of a fiery coal in his mouth. So, right. So Moshe was like, "Oh yeah, I'm grabbing the onyx stone," but the angel of Yahweh was like, "No, no, no, no." And when the king and princes saw this, they knew that Moshe had not acted with wisdom in taking off the crown from the king's head. So the king and the princes refrained from slaying the child. So Moshe remained in Pharaoh's house, growing up, and Yahweh was with him. And whilst the boy was in the king's house, he was robed in purple, and he grew amongst the children of the king. And when Moshe grew up in the king's house, Bathia, the daughter of Pharaoh, considered him as a son, and all the household of Pharaoh honored him, and all the men of Egypt were afraid of him. And he daily went forth and came into the land of Goshen, where his brethren, the children of Yashrael, were. And Moshe saw them daily in shortness of breath and hard labor. And Moshe asked them, saying, Wherefore is this labor meted out unto you day by day? And they told him all that had befallen them, and all the injunctions which Pharaoh had put upon them before his birth. And they told him all the counsels which Balaam the son of Beor had counseled against them, and what he had also counseled against him in order to slay him when he had taken the king's crown from off his head. And when Moshe heard these things, his anger was kindled against Balaam, and he sought to kill him. And he was an ambush for him day by day. And Balaam was afraid of Moshe, and he and his 2 sons rose up and went forth from Egypt. And they fled and delivered their souls, and betook themselves to the land of Cush, to Kikianus, the king of Cush. And Moshe was in the king's house, going out and coming in. Yahweh gave him favor in the eyes of Pharaoh, and in the eyes of all his servants, and in the eyes of all the people of Egypt, and they loved Moshe exceedingly. And the day arrived when Moshe went to Goshen to see his brethren, that he saw the children of Yashrael and their burdens and hard labor, and Moshe was grieved on their account. And Moshe returned to Egypt, and came to the house of Pharaoh, and came before the king, and Moshe bowed down before the king. And Moshe said unto Pharaoh, I pray thee, my lord, I have come to seek a small request from thee. Turn not away my face empty. And Pharaoh said unto him, Speak. And Moshe said unto Pharaoh, Let there be given unto thy servants, the children of Yashrael, who were in Goshen, 1 day to rest therein from their labor. And the king answered Moshe and said, Behold, I have lifted up thy face in this thing to grant thy request. And Pharaoh ordered a proclamation to be issued throughout Egypt and Goshen, saying, To you, all the children of Yashrael, thus says the king, For 6 days you shall do... For 6 days you shall do your work, but on the 7th day you shall rest, and shall not perform any work. Thus you shall do all the days as the king and Moshe the son of Bathia have commanded. And Moshe rejoiced at this thing which the king had granted him, and all the children of Yashrael did as Moshe ordered them. For this thing was from Yahuwah to the children of Yashrael, for Yahuwah had begun to remember the children of Yashrael, to save them for the sake of their fathers. And Yahuwah was with Moshe, and his fame went throughout Egypt. And Moshe became great in the eyes of all the Egyptians, and in the eyes of all the children of Yashrael, seeking good for his people Yashrael, and speaking words of peace regarding them to the king. Okay, so let's go back to finish up Exodus chapter 2 now. Or actually not finish it up. We're going to read a little portion here. A lot to read here. A lot of holes to fill. Let's see. How are we doing on time? Hour and a half in. Okay. Hang on. Okay. Let's keep going. Exodus chapter 2, verses 11 through 15. And it came to pass in those days when Moshe was grown that he went out unto his brethren and looked on their burdens. And he spied a Mitzri smiting an Ivri, one of his brethren. And he looked this way and that way. And when he saw that there was no man, he slew the Mitzri and hid him in the sand. And when he went out the second day, behold, 2 men of the Ivrim strove together. And he said to him that did the wrong, Wherefore smite you your fellow? And he said, "Who made you a prince and judge over us? Intend you to kill me, as you killed the Mitzri?" And Moshe feared and said, "Surely this thing is known." And we learn in the Targums that this is Dathan and Abiram that we learn a lot more about in the wilderness experience. They continue to be a problem. Now, when Pharaoh heard this thing, he sought to slay Moshe, but Moshe fled from the face of Pharaoh and dwelt in the land of Midian, and he sat down by a well. So let's go back to Yashar. There's a lot more holes to fill. We're going to learn a little more of why Moshe decided to kill this taskmaster. There's actually a lot more to the story, and it makes a little more sense. Because I mean, all the taskmasters were beating everybody. So why did he kill this one in particular? Why didn't he go around and start assassinating all of them? I think you'll find some comfort in knowing why Moshe did kill. It's a little more warranted in the book of Yashar. Okay, so when Moshe was 18 years old, he desired to see his father and mother, and went to them in Goshen. So he saw an Egyptian smiting one of the Hebrew brethren. And when the man who was beaten saw Moshe, he ran to him for help, for the man Moshe was greatly respected in the house of Pharaoh. And he said to him, "My lord, attend to me. This Egyptian came to my house in the night and bound me, and came to my wife in my presence, and now he seeks to take my life away." So this Egyptian came into his house and raped his wife in front of him. And when Moshe heard this wicked thing, his anger was kindled against the Egyptian. And he turned this way and the other, and when he saw there was no man, he smote the Egyptian, and hid him in the sand, and delivered the Hebrew from the hand of him that smote him. And the Hebrew went to his house, and Moshe returned to his home, and went forth, and came back to the king's house. And when the man had returned home, he thought of repudiating his wife, for it was not right in the house of Yaakov for any man to come to his wife after she had been defiled. And the woman went and told her brothers, and the woman's brothers sought to slay him, and he fled to his house and escaped. And on the second day Moshe went forth to his brethren, and saw, and behold, 2 men were quarreling. And he said to the wicked one, "Why dost thou smite thy neighbor?" And he answered him and said to him, "Who has set thee for a prince and a judge over us? Dost thou think to slay me as thou didst slay the Egyptian?" And Moshe was afraid, and he said, "Surely this thing is known." And Pharaoh heard of this affair, and he ordered Moshe to be slain. So Elohim sent his angel, and he appeared unto Pharaoh in the likeness of a captain of the guard. And the angel of Yahuah took the sword from the hand of the captain of the guard, and took his head off with it. For the likeness of the captain of the guard was turned into the likeness of Moshe. And the angel of Yahuah took hold of the right hand of Moshe, and brought him forth from Egypt, and placed him from without the borders of Egypt, a distance of 40 days' journey. And Aharon his brother alone remained in the land of Egypt, and he prophesied to the children of Yisrael, saying, "Thus says Yahuah Elohim of your ancestors, throw away each man the abomination of his eyes, and do not defile yourselves with the idols of Egypt." And the children of Yisrael rebelled, and would not hearken to Aharon at that time. And Yahuah thought to destroy them, were it not that Yahuah remembered the covenant which he had made with Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov. And in those days the hand of Pharaoh continued to be severe against the children of Yisrael, and he crushed and oppressed them until the time when Elohim sent forth his word. We know who that is, and took notice of them. All right. Okay, so we're going to skip this. So if you want to know the whole story, read Yashar chapter 72. Long story short, there apparently was a time in between from Egypt before he went to Midian. There was apparently, I think, 20 years, or maybe it's 40 years, 20 years, where he was in the land of Cush and became the king of Cush for like 20 years. And then afterwards, they like sent him away. And then that's when he wandered and went to Midian. But we're going to skip this part here. And, so Moshe reigned over the children of Cush. We're going to skip that. And so it's here, in the 50th year of the reign of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, that is, in the 175th year of the Israelites going down to Egypt, reigned Moshe in Cush. And Moshe was 27 years old when he began to reign over Cush, and 40 years did he reign. Okay, so 40 years. So we're going to skip this part again. It's a really interesting story, but we're going to... Yeah, I actually want to read this little part here. And Balaam the magician, when he saw that the city was taken, this is Cush still, he opened the gate, and he and his 2 sons and 8 brothers fled and returned to Egypt, to Pharaoh, king of Egypt. They are the sorcerers and magicians who are mentioned in the book of the Torah, standing against Moshe when Yahuah brought the plagues upon Egypt. And we know, again, Jonas and Jambres, we know that this story, we know that at least Paul read this story because Paul repeated their name. Actually, excuse me. So the names of Jonas and Jambres are in Yashar, and they're in the Targums. So he knew their names from somewhere. It was either from Yashar or that the Targums were the most ancient manuscripts, and their names were taken out for whatever reason. So we're gonna skip this part. Again, really interesting story. So if you want to read Jasher 72 and 73, I highly recommend it. And let's see, 74 we're going to skip anyways because that's different kingdoms, the reign of different kings and different kingdoms. We're 75 we're going to skip. This is an interesting story. 30,000 men from Ephraim trusted in their own strength to go into Canaan and to take back their possession before the appointed time, and they were all killed except 10 of them. And we also learn from the Targums that the reason that Yahuah didn't take them the straightest route is because they would have seen all the dead bodies of all of their of all the 30,000 killed of Ephraim when they went to go try to get things done before their time. Okay, so now we're going to finish this. This is at the end of the reign of Moshe and Cush, and now is when he starts going to Midian. So the book of Yashar, chapter 76, and Moshe, the son of Amram, was still king in the land of Cush in those days, and he prospered in his kingdom, and he conducted the government of the children of Cush in justice, in righteousness, and integrity. And all the children of Cush loved Moshe all the days that he reigned over them, and all the inhabitants of the land of Cush were greatly afraid of him. And in the 40th year of the reign of Moshe over Cush, Moshe was sitting on the royal throne, whilst Adoniah, the queen, was before him, and all the nobles were sitting around him. And one of the things was Moshe did not go in unto the queen because Moshe knew, well, for multiple reasons. We'll go through that another time. And Adoniah the queen said before the king and the princes, "What is this thing which you, the children of Cush, have done for this long time? Surely you know that for 40 years that this man has reigned over Cush, he has not approached me, nor has he served the gods of the children of Cush. Now therefore hear, O ye children of Cush, and let this man no more reign over you, for he is not of our flesh. Behold, Monarchus, my son is grown up. Let him reign over you, for it is better for you to serve the son of your Lord than to serve a stranger, slave of the king of Egypt." And all the people and nobles of the children of Cush heard the words which Adoniah the queen had spoken in their ears, and all the people were preparing until the evening. And in the morning they rose up early and made Monarchus, son of Kikianus, king over them. And all the children of Cush were afraid to stretch forth their hand against Moshe, for Yahuah was with Moshe. And the children of Cush remembered the oath which they swore unto Moshe. Therefore they did no harm to him. But the children of Cush gave many presents to Moshe, and sent him from them with great honor. So Moshe went forth from the land of Cush, and went home, and ceased to reign over Cush. And Moshe was 66 years old when he went out of the land of Cush, for the thing was from Yahuah, for the period had arrived which he had appointed of the days of old, to bring forth Yashrael from the affliction of the children of Ham. So Moshe went to Midian, for he was afraid to return to Egypt on account of Pharaoh, and he went and sat at a well in the water of Midian. And the 7 daughters of Reuel the Midianite went out to feed their father's flock. And they came to the well and drew water to water their father's flock. So the shepherds of Midian came and drove them away. And Moshe rose up and helped them and watered the flock. And they came home to their father Reuel and told him what Moshe did for them. And they said, "An Egyptian man has delivered us from the hands of the shepherds. He drew up water for us and watered the flock." And Reuel said to his daughters, "And where is he? Wherefore have you left the man?" And Reuel sent for him and fetched him and brought him home, and he ate bread with him. And Moshe related to Reuel all that he had fled from Egypt, and that reigned 40 years over Cush, and that they afterward had taken the government from him, and had sent him away in peace and with honor and presence. And when Reuel heard the words of Moshe, Reuel said within himself, "I will put this man into prison house, whereby I shall conciliate the children of Cush, for he has fled from them." And they took and put him into the prison house. And Moshe was in prison 10 years. 10 years. And whilst Moshe was in the prison house, Zipporah, the daughter of Reuel, took pity over him and supported him with bread and water all the time. And all the children and all the children of Yasharel were yet in the land of Egypt, serving the Egyptians in all manner of hard work. And in the hand of Egypt continued in severity over the children of Yasharel in those days. At that time Yahuah smote Pharaoh the king of Egypt, and he afflicted with the plague of leprosy from the sole of his foot to the crown of his head, owing to the cruel treatment of the children of Yasharel. Was this plague at that time from Yahuah upon the Pharaoh the king of Egypt. For Yahuah hearkened to the prayer of his people, the children of Yasharel, and their cry reached him on account of their hard work. Still his anger did not turn from them, and the hand of Pharaoh was still stretched out against the children of Yasharel. And Pharaoh hardened his neck before Yahuah, and he increased his yoke over the children of Yasharel, and embittered their lives with all manner of hard work. And when Yahuah had inflicted the plague upon Pharaoh king of Egypt, he asked his wise men and sorcerers to cure him. Now this gets very, very twisted. And his wise men and sorcerers said unto him that if the blood of little children were put into the wounds, he would be healed. Now think about that right now, and think about what the elite are doing with aborted fetuses and stem cells, or not. I don't know. I don't know all the correct terminology. That's not my area of expertise. But we know what they're doing with baby parts and baby blood and children's blood and all this kind of stuff, right? It's preserving their lives and giving them power in the flesh. That if the blood of the little children were put into the wounds, he would be healed. And Pharaoh hearkened to them, and sent his ministers to Goshen to the children of Yasharel to take their little children. And Pharaoh's ministers went and took the infants of the children of Yasharel from the bosoms of their mothers by force, and they brought them to Pharaoh daily, a child each day, and the physicians killed them and applied them to the plague. Thus did they all the days. And the number of the children which Pharaoh slew was 375. But Yahuah hearkened not to the physicians of the king of Egypt, and the plague went on increasing mightily. And Pharaoh was 10 years afflicted with that plague. Still the heart of Pharaoh was more hardened against the children of Yasharel. And at the end of 10 years, Yahuah continued to afflict Pharaoh with destructive plagues. And Yahuah smote him with a bad tumor and sickness at the stomach, and that plague turned to a severe boil. At that time the two ministers of Pharaoh came from the land of Goshen, where all the children of Yasharel were, and went to the house of Pharaoh and said to him, We have seen the children of Yasharel slacken in their work and negligent in their labor. And when Pharaoh heard the words of his ministers, his anger was kindled against the children of Yasharel exceedingly, for he was greatly grieved at his bodily pain. And he answered and said, Now that the children of Yasharel know that I am ill, they turn and scoff at us. Now therefore harness my chariot for me, and I will betake myself to Goshen, and I will see the scoff of the children of Yasharel, with which they are deriding me. So his servants harnessed the chariot for him. And they took and made him ride upon a horse, for he was not able to ride on upon himself. And he took with him 10 horsemen and 10 footmen, and went to the children of Yasharel to Goshen. And when they had come to the border of Egypt, the king's horse passed into a narrow place, elevated in the hollow part of the vineyard, fenced on both sides, the low plain country being on the other side. And the horses ran rapidly in that place, and pressed each other, and the horses pressed the king's horses, and the king's horses fell into the low plain, whilst the king was riding upon it. And when he fell, the chariot turned over the king's face, and the horse lay upon the king, and the king cried out, for his flesh was very sore. And the flesh of the king was torn from him, and his bones were broken, and he could not ride. For this thing was from Yahuah to him, for Yahuah had heard the cries of his people, the children of Yasharel, and their affliction. And his servants carried him upon their shoulders a little at a time, and they brought him back to Egypt. And the horsemen who were with him came also back to Egypt. And they placed him in his bed, and the king knew that his end was come to die. So Aparaneth, the queen, his wife, came and cried before the king, and the king wept a great weeping with her. And all his nobles and his servants came on that day and saw the king that in that affliction, and wept a great weeping with him. And the princes of the king and all his counselors advised the king to cause one to reign in his stead in the land, whomsoever he should choose from his sons. And anyways, it keeps going. He ends up choosing his son Adikam, who was short, fat, and had a beard all the way down to the floor. All right, so let's read Exodus 2:16 through 25. Now the priests of Midian had 7 daughters, and they came and drew water and filled the troughs to water their father's flock. And the shepherds came and drove them away, but Moshe stood up and helped them and watered their flock. And when they came to Reuel, their father, he said, "How is it that you are come so soon today?" And they said, "A Mitzri delivered us out of the hand of the shepherds, and also drew water enough for us, and watered the flock." And he said unto his daughters, "And where is he? And why is it that ye have left the man? Call him, that he may eat bread." And Moshe was content to dwell with the man, and he gave Moshe Zipporah his daughter, and she bore him a son, and he called his name Gershom, for he said, "I have been a stranger in a strange land." And it came to pass in the process of time that the king of Mitzrayim died, and the children of Yashrael sighed by reason of the bondage, and they cried, and their cry came up to Elohim by reason of their bondage. And Elohim heard their groaning, and Elohim remembered his covenant with Avraham, and with Yitzchak, and with Yaakov. And Elohim looked upon the children of Yashrael, and Elohim had respect unto them. Let's see. This is just more of the yeah, this is more of the grievous punishments that Egypt did to Israel. Here we go. Okay. Here we go. So chapter 77 of Yashar, verse 26. This is where it just ended. Verse 25. And Elohim saw the burden of the children of Yashrael and their heavy work in those days, and he determined to deliver them. And Moshe the son of Amram was still confined in the dungeon in those days, in the house of Reuel the Midianite. And Zipporah the daughter of Reuel did support him with food secretly day by day. And Moshe was confined in the dungeon in the house of Reuel for 10 years. And at the end of the 10 years, which was the first year of the reign of Pharaoh over Egypt, in the place of his father, Zipporah said to her father Reuel, "No person inquires or seeks after the Hebrew man, whom thou didst bind in prison now 10 years. Now therefore, if it seem good in thy sight, let us send and see whether he is living or dead." But her father knew not that she had supported him. And Reuel her father answered and said to her, "Has ever such a thing happened, that a man should be shut up in prison without food for 10 years, and that he should live?" And Zipporah answered her father, saying, "Surely thou hast heard that the Elohim of the Hebrews is great and awful, and does wonders for them at all times. He it was who delivered Avraham from Ur the Chaldeans, and Yitzchak from the sword of his father, and Yaakov from the angel of Yahuah, who wrestled with him at the ford of Yabuk. Also with this man he has done many things, and he delivered him from the river in Egypt, and from the sword of Pharaoh, and from the children of Cush. So also he can deliver him from famine and make him live." And this thing seemed good in the sight of Reuel, and he did according to the word of his daughter, and he sent to the dungeon to ascertain what became of Moshe. And he saw, and behold, man, Moshe was living in the dungeon, standing upon his feet, praising and praying to Yahuah Elohim of his ancestors. And Reuel commanded Moshe to be brought out of the dungeon, so they shaved him, and he changed his prison garments and ate bread. And afterwards Moshe went into the garden of Reuel, which was behind the house, and there he prayed to Yahuah his Elohim, who had done mighty wonders for him. And it was that whilst he prayed, he looked opposite him, and behold, a sapphire stick was placed in the ground, which was planted in the midst of the garden. And he approached the stick. Remember, it's sapphire, just like the Ten Commandments is sapphire, just like the firmament is sapphire, just like the throne of Yahuah is sapphire, just like our tzitzits have a little bit of the sapphire blue, right? And he approached the stick, and he looked. This is where the people of today's world get the sword and the stone idea from. And he approached the stick, and he looked, and behold, the name of Yahuah Elohim of hosts, Sebaot, was engraved thereon, written and developed upon the stick. And he read it, and stretched forth his hand, and he plucked it like a forest tree from the thicket, and the stick was in his hand. This is the stick with which all the works of our Elohim were performed after he had created heaven and earth, and all the hosts of them, seas, rivers, and all their fishes. And when Elohim had driven Adam from the Garden of Eden, he took the stick in his hand, and went and tilled the ground from which it was taken. And the stick came down to Noah, and was given to Shem and his descendants, until it came into the hand of Avraham the Hebrew. And when Avraham had given all he had to his son Yitzchak, he also gave him his stick. And when Yaakov had fled to Padan Aram, he took it into his hand. And when he returned to his father, he had not left it behind him. Also, when he went down to Egypt, he took it in his hand and gave it unto Joseph, one portion above his brethren. For Yaakov had taken it by force from his brother Esau. And after the death of Joseph, the nobles of Egypt came into the house of Joseph, and the stick came into the hand of Reuel the Midianite. And when he went out of Egypt, he took it in his hand and planted it in his garden. And all the mighty men of the Kenites tried to pluck it when they endeavored to get Zipporah his daughter, but they were unsuccessful, so that the stick remained planted in the garden of Reuel until he came who had a right to it and took it. And when Reuel saw the stick in the hand of Moshe, he wondered at it, and he gave him his daughter Zipporah for a wife. Pretty interesting story, right? Okay, now we're going to read all of Exodus chapter 3. Very important one. Now Moshe kept the flock of Yithro, his father-in-law, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the backside of the desert and came to the mountain of Elohim, even to Horeb, Mount Sinai. And the angel of Yahuah appeared unto him in a flame out of the midst of a thorn bush. And he looked, and behold, the thorn bush burned with fire, and the thorn bush was not consumed. And Moshe said, I will now turn aside and see this great sight, why the thorn bush is not burnt. And when Yahuah saw that he turned aside to see, Elohim called unto him out of the midst of the thorn bush and said, Moshe, Moshe. And he said, Here am I. And he said, Draw not nigh hither. Put off your shoes from off your feet, for the place whereon you stand is holy ground. Moreover, he said, I am the Elohai of your father, the Elohai of Avraham, the Elohai of Yitzchak, and the Elohai of Yaakov. And Moshe hid his face, for he was afraid to look upon Elohim. And Yahuah said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people, which are in Mitzrayim, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters. For I know their sorrows, and have come down to deliver them out of the hand of Mitzrayim, and to bring them up out of the land unto a good land, a large, unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Kenanim, and the Chitim, and the Amorim, and the Perizim, and the Chivim, and the Yevusim. Now therefore, behold, the cry of the children of Yisrael is come unto me, and I have also seen the oppression wherewith the Mitzrayim oppress them. Come now therefore, and I will send you unto Pharaoh, that you may bring forth my people, the children of Yisrael, out of Mitzrayim. And Moshe said unto Elohim, Who am I, that I should go unto Pharaoh, and that I should bring forth the children of Yisrael out of Mitzrayim? And he said, Certainly I will be with you, and this shall be a sign unto you, that I have sent you. When you have brought forth the people out of Mitzrayim, ye shall serve Elohim upon this mountain. And Moshe said unto Elohim, Behold, when I come unto the children of Yisrael, and say unto them, The Elohai of your fathers has sent me unto you, they shall say unto me, What's his name? What shall I say unto them? And Elohim said unto Moshe, Ahaya, Asher, Ahaya, I am that I am. And he said, Thus shall you say unto the children of Yisrael, Ahaya has sent me unto you. A lot of people will stop there and say that his name is Ahaya, Asher, Ahaya. Still a title. You have to keep reading. Reading it in translations like the Sefer and the Hallelujah scriptures, it's a little clearer. In the KJV, it's not, because it's just a Lord and God sandwich, so you don't even know what you're reading. So Exodus 3:15, very important. And Elohim said moreover unto Moshe, Thus shall you say unto the children of Yisrael, Yahuah Elohai of your fathers, the Elohai of Avraham, the Elohai of Yitzchak, and the Elohai of Yaakov has sent me unto you. This is my name forever. And this is my mention unto all generations. Go, gather the elders of Yisrael together, and say unto them, Yahuah Elohai of your fathers, the Elohai of Avraham, of Yitzchak, and of Yaakov appeared unto me, saying, I have surely visited you, and seen that which is done unto you in Mitzrayim. And I have said, I will bring you up out of the affliction of the Mitzrayim unto the land of the Kenanim, and of the Chitim, and the Amorim, and the Perizim, and the Chivim, and the Yevusim unto a land flowing with milk and honey. And they shall hearken to your voice, and ye shall come, you, and the elders of Yisrael, unto the king of Mitzrayim, and ye shall say unto him, Yahuah Elohai of the Ivrim has met with us. And now, let us go, we beseech you, 3 days' journey into the wilderness, that we may sacrifice to Yahuah Elohiym. And I am sure that the king of Mitzrayim will not let you go. No, not by a mighty hand. And I will stretch out my hand and smite Mitzrayim with all my wonders, which I will do in the midst thereof. After that he will let you go. And I will give this people favor in the sight of the Mitzrayim. And it shall come to pass that when ye go, ye shall not go empty. But every woman shall borrow of her neighbor, and of her that sojourns in her house, jewels of silver, jewels of gold, and raiment. And ye shall put them upon your sons and upon your daughters, and ye shall spoil the Mitzrayim. All right, so end of chapter 3. Now we're going to read chapter 4, verses 1 through 26. Give me a second. And Moshe answered and said, But behold, they will not believe me, nor hearken unto my voice, for they will say, Yahuah has not appeared unto you. And Yahuah said unto him, What is that in your hand? And he said, A rod. And he said, Cast it on the ground. And he cast it on the ground, and it became a serpent. And Moshe fled from before it. And Yahuah said unto Moshe, Put forth your hand, and take it by the tail. And he put forth his hand, and caught it. And it became a rod in his hand, that they may believe that Yahuah Elohai of their fathers, the Elohai of Abraham, the Elohai of Yitzchak, and the Elohai of Yaakov has appeared unto you. And Yahuah said furthermore unto him, Put now your hand into your bosom. And he put his hand into his bosom. And when he took it out, behold, his hand was leprous as snow. And he said, Put your hand into your bosom again. And he put his hand into his bosom again, and plucked it out of his bosom. And behold, it was turned again as his other flesh. And it shall come to pass, if they will not believe you, neither hearken to the voice of the first sign, that they will believe the voice of the latter sign. And it shall come to pass, if they do not believe these two signs, neither hearken unto your voice, that you shall take of the water of the river and pour it upon the dry land, and the water which you take out of the river shall become blood upon the dry land. And Moshe said unto Yahuah, O my Adonai, I am not eloquent, neither heretofore, nor since you have spoken unto your servant, but I am slow of speech and slow of tongue. And Yahuah said unto him, Who has made man's mouth? Or who makes the dumb, or deaf, or the seeing, or the blind? Have not I, Yahuah? Now therefore go, and I will be with your mouth, and teach you what you shall say. And he said, O my Adonai, send, I pray you, by the hand of him whom you will send. And the anger of Yahuah was kindled against Moshe, and he said, Is not Aharon the Levi your brother? I know that he can speak well. And also, behold, he comes forth to meet you, and when he sees you, he will be glad in his heart. And you shall speak unto him, and put words in his mouth, and I will be with your mouth, and with his mouth, and will teach you what you shall do. And he shall be your spokesman unto the people, and he shall be, even he shall be to you instead of a mouth, and ye shall be to him instead of Elohim. And ye shall take this rod in your hand, wherewith ye shall do these signs. We'll keep going till verse 26. Okay. And Moshe went and returned to Yitro his father-in-law, and said unto him, Let me go, I pray you, and return unto my brethren which are in Mitzrayim, and see whether they be yet alive. And Yitro said unto Moshe, Go in peace. And Yahuah said unto Moshe and Midian, Go, return into Mitzrayim, for all the men are dead which sought your life. And Moshe took his woman and his sons, and set them upon an ass, and he returned to the land of Mitzrayim. And Moshe took the rod of Elohim in his hand. And Yahuah said unto Moshe, When you go to return into Mitzrayim, see that you do all these wonders before Pharaoh, which I have put in your hand, but I will harden his heart, that he shall not let his people go. And ye shall say unto Pharaoh, Thus says Yahuah, Yasharel is my son, even my firstborn. And I say unto you, Let my son go, that he may serve me. And if you refuse to let him go, behold, I will slay your son, even your firstborn. And it came to pass by the way in the inn that Yahuah met him and sought to kill him. This is really not Yahuah. I'll show you in a second. Then Zipporah took a sharp stone and cut off the foreskin of her son and cast it at his feet and said, Surely a bloody man you are to me. This is not really what happened at all. We'll show you with how this really went down here in a second. So he let him go and then said, A bloody man you are because of the circumcision. So let's take a look at Yashar 78. Yashar 78, 7 through 16. Okay. In those days, Moshe, the son of Amram in Midian, took Zipporah, the daughter of Reuel, the Midianite, for a wife. And Zipporah walked in the ways of the daughters of Yaakov. She was nothing short of the righteousness of Sarah, Rebekah, Rachel, and Leah. And Zipporah conceived and bare a son and called his name Gershom, for he said, I was a stranger in a foreign land. But he circumcised not his foreskin at the command of Reuel, his father-in-law. And she conceived again and bare a son, but circumcised his foreskin and called his name Eliezer. For Moshe said, because the Elohim of my father was my help and delivered me from the sword of Pharaoh. And Pharaoh king of Egypt greatly increased the labor of the children of Yashrael in those days and continued to make his yoke heavier upon the children of Yashrael. And he ordered a proclamation to be made in Egypt, saying, give no more straw to the people to make bricks with. Let them go and gather themselves straw as they can find it. This is all the same. So I want to answer that question about the... Here we go. And this is Yashar chapter 79, starting at verse 8. Moshe rose up to go to Egypt, and he took his wife and his sons with him. And he was at an inn at the road, and an angel, not the angel of Yahuah or Yahuah himself, an angel of Yahuah. In the Targums, it says the destroyer. So more than likely Satan. And an angel of Elohim came down and sought an occasion against him, right, the accuser. And he wished to kill him on account of his firstborn son because he had not circumcised him. Right, so he broke Torah, and so here's a perfect entryway. He's like, yeah, you transgress, buddy. I'm going to get you. And those of you that were with me on the study last night, we got to look for all these little loopholes that the demons, the powers and principalities can seek against us. They can seek legal accusation against us and say, Yahuah, look what so-and-so just ate. They just ate something with pork. They just transgressed your Torah. Let me have access, please. That's what happened here. The accuser was like, oh, Yahuah, your man Moshe here, he transgressed your circumcision commandment, right? So he's mine. Or can he be mine? And he wished to kill him on account of his firstborn son because he had not circumcised him and had transgressed the covenant which Yahuah had made with Avraham. For Moshe had hearkened to the words of his father-in-law, which he had spoken to him, not to circumcise his firstborn son. Therefore he circumcised him not. And Zipporah saw the angel of Yahuah seeking an occasion against Moshe, and she knew that this thing was owing to his not having circumcised her son Gershom. And Zipporah hastened and took of the sharp rock stones that were there, and she circumcised her son and delivered her husband and her son from the hand of the angel of Yahuah. So that's what happened. That's what really happened there. And again, the only thing different in the Targums, it says specifically that angel is the destroyer. So, okay, let's keep going. Exodus 4:27, and Yahuah said to Aaron, go into the wilderness to meet Moshe. And he went and met him in the mount of Elohim and kissed him. And Moshe told Aharon all the words of Yahuah who had sent him, and all the signs which he had commanded him. And Moshe and Aharon went and gathered together all the elders of the children of Yashrael. And Aharon spoke all the words which Yahuah had spoken unto Moshe, and did the signs in the sight of the people, and all the people believed. And when they heard that Yahuah had visited the children of Yashrael, that he looked upon their affliction, then they bowed their heads and worshipped. Okay, Exodus 5, we're going to read all of it. And afterward Moshe and Aharon went in and told Pharaoh, and thus says Yahuah Elohiym of Yashrael, let my people go, that they may hold a feast unto me in the wilderness. And Pharaoh said, who is Yahuah, that I should obey his voice to let Yashrael go? I know not Yahuah, neither will I let Yashrael go. And there's actually something really interesting in the Targums here that I actually want to just stop now and read. Chapter 5. Sorry for the scroll. It makes people dizzy sometimes. Sorry. Okay. Chapter 5 in the Targums. And after this, Moshe and Aharon went up unto Pharaoh and said, Thus saith Yahuah, the Elohim of Yisrael, release my people that they may make unto me a festival in the wilderness. And Pharaoh said, The name of Yahuah is not made known to me, that I should receive his word to release Yisrael. I have not found written in the book of the angels the name of Yahuah. Of him I am not afraid, neither will I release Yisrael. So here we see, is this like a book from the Watchers, right? Or is this a book from the 70 angels that preside over the 70 nations? Really interesting. First I ever heard of it until I looked at this Torah portion. Right, so Pharaoh said, Who is Yahuah that I shall obey his voice to go let Yisrael go? I know not Yahuah, neither will I let Yisrael go. And they said, The Elohai of the Ivrim has met with us. Let us go, we pray you, 3 days' journey into the desert, and sacrifice unto Yahuah Eloheinu, lest he fall upon us with pestilence or with the sword. And the king of Mitzrayim said unto them, Wherefore do ye, Moshe and Aharon, let the people go from their works? Get you unto your burdens. And Pharaoh said, Behold, the people of the land now are many, and ye make them rest from their burdens. And Pharaoh commanded the same day the taskmasters of the people and their officers, saying, Ye shall no more give the people straw to make brick as heretofore. Let them go and gather straw for themselves. And the tale of the bricks which they did make heretofore, ye shall lay upon them. Ye shall not diminish aught thereof, for they be idle. Therefore they cry, saying, Let us go and sacrifice to our Elohim. Let their more work be laid upon them, that they may labor therein, and let them not regard vain words. And the taskmasters of the people went out, and their officers, and they spoke unto the people, saying, Thus says Pharaoh, I will not give you straw. Go ye, get ye straw where you can find it, yet not aught of your work should be diminished. So you got to do extra work, and you better get all the work still done. So the people were scattered abroad through all the land of Mitzrayim to gather the stubble instead of straw, and the taskmasters hasted them, saying, Fulfill your works and your daily tasks, as when there was straw. And the officers of the children of Yisrael, which Pharaoh's taskmasters had set over them, were beaten, and demanded, Wherefore have ye not fulfilled your tasks in making brick both yesterday and today as heretofore? Then the officers of the children of Yisrael came and cried unto Pharaoh, saying, Wherefore deal you thus with your servants? There is no straw given unto your servants. And they say to us, Make brick, and behold, your servants are beaten. But the fault is in your own people. But he said, Ye are idle. Ye are idle. Therefore ye say, Let us go and do sacrifice to Yahuah. Go there, therefore now, and work, for there shall no straw be given you, yet ye shall deliver the tale of bricks. And the officers of the children of Yisrael did see that they were in evil case after it was said, Ye shall not diminish aught from your bricks of your daily task. And they met Moshe and Aharon, who stood in the way as they came forth from Pharaoh. And they said unto him, Yahuah will look upon you and judge, because you have made our Savior to be abhorred in the eyes of Pharaoh and in the eyes of his servants, to put a sword in their hand to slay us. And Moshe returned unto Yahuah and said, Adonai, wherefore have you so evil entreated this people? Why is it that you have sent me? For since I came to Pharaoh to speak in your name, he has done evil to this people, neither have you delivered your people at all. All right, so let's read more of Yashar 79. This will be actually the last portion, where it's about 10 verses, and then we got one verse in Exodus 6, and we're done for this week. So Yashar 79, 21 through 31. So this is when they're going to Pharaoh's house the first time. And when they came to the king's gate, the 2 young lions were confined there with iron instruments, and no persons went out or came in from before them, unless those whom the king ordered to come. When the conjurers came, then withdrew the lions by their incantations, and this brought them to the king. So they basically had 2 lions as guard lions. And Moshe hastened and lifted up the stick upon the lions, and he loosed them. And Moshe and Aharon came into the king's house. The lions also came with them in joy, and they followed them and rejoiced as a dog rejoices over his master when he comes into the field. So can you imagine, you got Moshe and Aharon walking in, you got these lions that are acting like dogs, they're all excited. And when Pharaoh saw this thing, he was astonished at it, and he was greatly terrified at the report, for their appearance was like the appearance of the children of Elohim. And Pharaoh said to Moshe, What do you require? And they answered him, saying, Yahuah Elohim of the Hebrews has sent us to you to say, Send forth my people, that they may serve me. And when Pharaoh heard their words, he was greatly terrified before them, and he said to them, Go today and come back to me tomorrow. And they did according to the word of the king. And when they had gone, Pharaoh sent for Bilam the magician, and to Jannes and Yambres his sons, and to all the magicians and conjurers and counselors which belonged to the king, and they all came and sat before the king. So just to show you that Paul knew these names, right? 2 Timothy 3:8. Now, as Jannes and Jambres withstood Moses, so do these also resist the truth, the Torah, men of corrupt minds reprobating concerning the faith. So Paul knew their names somehow. So again, the only places you see these names are in the Targums and the book of Yashar. And to all the magicians and conjurers and counselors which belonged to the king, and they all came and sat before the king. And the king told them all the words which Moshe and his brother Aharon had spoken to him. And all the magicians said to the king, But how came the men to thee on account of the lions which were confined at the gate? And the king said, Because they lifted up their rod against the lions and loosed them, and they came to me. And the lions also rejoiced at them, as a dog rejoices to meet his master. And Balaam, the son of Beor, the magician, answered the king, saying, These are none else than magicians like unto ourselves. Now therefore send for them, and let them come, and we will try them. And the king did so. Last verse, and actually I got just a couple of little portions in the Targums. So Exodus 6:1. Then Yahuwah said unto Moshe, Now you shall see what I will do to Pharaoh. For with a strong hand he shall let him go. He shall let them go. With a strong hand shall he drive them out of this land. So let me take a look at my notes real quick. I had some stuff for the Targums. So let's go back to the Targums. Just a couple little nuggets to point out here. So chapter 1, third portion. Yeah, here in the Targums we see Jannes and Jambres, the magicians of Mitzrayim. Here we go. Therefore did Pharaoh, king of Mitzrayim, give counsel to the Hebrew wives, the name of one who is Shiphrah, who is Jochebed, and the name of the other Puah, who is Miriam, her daughter. And this is where he commands them to kill them. But the midwives feared before Yahuwah and would not do according to what the king of Mitzrayim had said to them, but they saved the children. And the king of Mitzrayim called the midwives and said to them, Why have you done this thing and have saved the children? And the midwives said to Pharaoh, The Hebrew women are not as the Mitzrayit, for they are sturdy or courageous and wise-minded. Before the midwife cometh to them, they lift up their eyes in prayer, supplicating mercy before their Father who is in heaven, who heareth the voice of their prayer, and at once they are heard and bring forth and are delivered in peace. And Yahuwah did good to the midwives, and the people multiplied and prevailed greatly. And for as much as the midwives feared before Yahuwah, they obtained for themselves a good name unto the ages, and the word of Yahuwah builded for them a royal house, even the house of the high priesthood. So this is what it was talking about when in chapter 1, where it said he built those two midwives a house. He built them the high priesthood because, again, this was Jochebed, the mother of Miriam, Aaron, and Moshe, and Miriam, right? So that was an interesting little nugget in the Targums this week. Let's see, chapter 2, just to show you, it's just something minor, but just to show you the two people that were fighting were Dathan and Abiram right here. And we went out the second day and looked, and behold, Dathan and Abiram, the men of the Hebrews, contended, seeing that Dathan put forth his hand against Abiram to smite him. And he said to him, Wherefore thou dost thou smite thy companion? So let's see. Let's see here. Here, but when Reuel knew that Moshe had fled from before Pharaoh, he cast him into a pit. But Zipporah, the daughter of his son, maintained him with food secretly for the time of 10 years. So the Targums confirms Jasher. And at the end of 10 years, brought him out of the pit. And Moshe went into the bedchamber of Reuel and gave thanks and prayed before Yahuwah, who by him would work miracles and mighty acts. And there was shown to him a rod which was created between the evenings, and on which the engraven and set forth the great and glorious name, which what he was to do wonders in Mitzrayim, and to divide the sea of Suf, and to bring forth water from the rock. And it was infixed in the midst of the chamber, and he stretched forth his hand at once and took it. So this one says it was in the bedchamber, the other one says it was in the garden, but still, the story is nearly the same. Yeah, and here we see also a confirmation, second witness for what's written in Jasher about the blood. And it was after many of those days that the king of Mitzrayim was struck with a disease, and he commanded to kill the firstborn of the sons of Israel, that he might bathe himself in their blood to be healed. All right, so chapter 4. We're going to look at the 6th paragraph. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Yeah, here's the same thing with the circumcision. But it was on the way in the place of the lodging that the angel of Yahuwah met him and sought to kill him, because Gershom his son had not been circumcised, and as much as Jethro his father-in-law had not permitted him to circumcise him, but Eleazar had been circumcised by an agreement between them two. And Zipporah took a stone and circumcised the foreskin of Gershom her son, and brought the severed part to the feet of the angel, the destroyer, and said, the husband sought to circumcise, but the father-in-law obstructed him. And now let this blood of the circumcision atone for my husband. It's a good wife. Very good wife. Okay, so let's see. Yeah, okay, and we read the other thing about the book of the angels. The book of the angels, they did not find the name of Yahuwah in it. So, interesting stuff. Amazing Torah portion. It's probably one of my favorites because there's just so much to learn in this one. There's so many holes to fill. I pray that you were blessed by it as much as I was to go through it. So let's pray together. We're going to pray, do the priestly blessing, and we're going to do the Ten Commandments song. And we will scatter and finish our Shabbats. We'll finish our Shabbats in awesomeness. I don't know. I lost lots of words there. So let's pray. Heavenly Father, O Yahuwah, we come before you in your Son Yahusha HaMashiach's name, and we thank you first and foremost for your word, our Messiah. Your word is a lamp unto our feet. And we just thank you so much for salvation through belief and his atonement for us. And we thank you for reconciling us back to you, O Yahuwah. We thank you for opening our eyes to your Torah, the full breadth of your scripture. And we just thank you for opening our eyes to these kind of books that we can start to understand truly what the past has happened. And certainly you can learn more for the future. And we just thank you so much for opening our eyes to these books, and we just bless you on this Shabbat. We thank you for all that you do. We thank you for this amazing day of rest. We thank you for giving us the Ruach HaKodesh, and we just ask you to continue to strengthen us every day. We thank you for this congregation, this public gathering of reading and studying your word. And we pray that it was a blessing in your sight, that people want to do this in the last days and truly do it, not with double-mindedness, but with a single-mindedness towards you. Oh, Yahuwah, please continue to prune us, to remove anything from us that is not of you, because we want to be righteous in your eyes. We want to do what's right in your eyes and to bring forth that true fruit. We love you. We sing you many praises in Yahusha's name. We thank you for all the works of your hands, your creation. Everything contained in this world that you have made with your hands is glorious, and we can't wait. We can wait. We are eagerly waiting for Yahusha to come and to reign it in righteousness and to be part of your kingdom. We pray that we may be accounted worthy to escape all these things that are coming to pass and to stand before the Son of Man and to be with you forever. We love you in Yahusha's name. Amen and amen. Hallelujah. Hallelujah. So, Yevarechecha Yahuwah beyish merecha Ya'er Yahuwah panav elecha v'chuneka Yisa Yahuwah panav elecha v'yasem lecha shalom. Yahuwah bless you and keep you. Yahuwah make his face shine upon you and be gracious unto you. Yahuwah lift up his countenance upon you and give you shalom, especially on this Shabbat. Amen and amen. And here is the Ten Commandments song. So hope you enjoy it, and we'll end this stream. Let's sing a little song about the two greatest commandments, loving Yahuwah and loving people. Let's start with how we love him. You shall not have any other Elohim before him. You not have any graven images, for you are his. You shall not bow down to them, nor shall you ever serve them. Keeping his commandment shows you love him. Yahusha did not abolish but strengthen them. Blessed are those who keep his way. They may have the right to enter through the gate. And you shall not take his name in vain, and remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. Work 6 days and then we rest and be refreshed. Honor your mom and dad, and then you'll be surely glad. Keeping his commandment shows you love him. Yahusha did not abolish but strengthen them. Blessed are those who keep his way. They may have the right to enter through the gate. Now we're going to sing about loving other people. Here's how. And you shall not murder anyone, even in your heart. Love everyone, and you shall not commit adultery, even in your mind. Put that all behind, and you shall not steal anything. Be satisfied with what Yah provides, and you shall not tell any lies, for he sees all who's above the skies. You shall not covet anything, but keep his ways. You won't lack a thing. Keeping his commandment shows you love him. Yahusha did not abolish but strengthen them. Blessed are those who keep his way. They may have the right